Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome. If you hear music in the background, that's my iPad being loud. Good evening, good evening, good evening. For those of you in the chat, thanks for joining. Jamaican Family Vibes, thanks for being here. This is a different session today, even though Cranky Live is my sports channel. I will be doing something out of the ordinary on Cranky Live, which is not talking about sports, but as many of you know, more recently, there have been a lot of discussions around Prime Minister Andrew Holness's statutory declaration, and we're going to talk about that today. I'm not an attorney. People think that make certain comments or certain observations. They're from a legal perspective. They're not an attorney. I'm an accountant by trade. And I have a view as to what an auditor goes through in terms of doing these type of investigation or these types of audit, as we normally call them. And so I can talk more from that perspective, not necessarily from a legal perspective. Good evening, New Wave. Good evening, Jargum. Good evening, Text Dexter. So we talk about it from that perspective. It should take, I would think, anywhere from half an hour to an hour to go through the discussion, and we can probably have a conversation about this. But I think before we jump into the discussion, we probably should take something of a step back, actually. Normally in these situations, I would jump right into the discussion around the statutory declaration, and we'll do that. Bless up Rockford. There've been a lot of discussion in the public environment, mainly in Jamaica, obviously, about the integrity report. It's over 170 pages. I haven't really sat down and listened through all of these in detail. I did listen to a conversation yesterday that Jackson Miller had with an attorney around the litigation. The litigation that was filed by the Prime Minister concerning the results of the Integrity Commission, and we probably will talk about that a little bit. Because I didn't want my views to be tainted in any way, shape, or form. So I didn't spend a lot of time listening to all of those conversations. I want to have a very independent perspective, just based on the facts and circumstances. So I have been sort of doing some research, trying to get understanding of the history here. What is the statutory declaration? What does it entail? Where is it derived from? What's the basis of it? How is it administered? And what's sort of the process that it entails? But in going through YouTube and listening to a couple of things, not necessarily about this per se, there was a program I came across yesterday, which talks about a little bit about the history of the Prime Minister, a little bit. I didn't listen to the part that talks about the statutory declaration, but mainly about the history a little bit. So I think it'd be good to start there, right? So before we jump, people always say you got to know your history so you can know your destiny. So our destiny tonight is sort of watching the statutory declaration. The history is, what's the history behind Andrew Holness? So obviously here is an article that came out a while back by Zara Burton from 18 Degree Investigation, talking about Andrew Holness. The house you see here is Beverly Hills Mansion. And even a lot of this, and this article came out, I think. So, good evening, Dennis. Thanks for joining. Came out in April 2024. And the article sort of focused on the Prime Minister has all his, well, I shouldn't say all, a lot of his assets in a holding company. And a holding company is like an umbrella company where normally associated with more corporations, where you would have a number of companies underlying that holding company, and they sit in that holding company. But he has all his assets, or most of his assets, in this company. Was called ADMAT. As you can see here, the company was incorporated in St. Lucia. You see here it says, and it has been dissolved since 2021. And the reason for the dissolution or dissolving the company, so the I call it mansion, the house you see at Beverly Hills resides in ADMAT, right? And the previous reason why the first question one would ask is, why would a prime minister of a country have his assets in a company domicile or incorporated in St. Lucia? Well, and as you can see here, it was dissolved in 2021, and it was dissolved. Well, the first rationale is it's tax implications, right? A lot of these smaller Eastern Caribbean islands had very favorable tax environment where you register your company there, you probably pay a fee, and what income you generate, basically, you don't have to pay tax on that income. And so, for him to put his Beverly Hills home there would suggest that he's not paying, for example, property taxes. Now, for example, in the U.S., I don't care where your house is in the U.S. I don't care what kind of company you have offshore. You're gonna pay property taxes. It's like drinking water to eat. And by the way, people, as you know, as it works, as you come in, people, let me just say this tonight, actually, because someone just get me perturbed. And you guys know how miserable I get sometimes. Hit the like button, people. I spend a lot of time doing research. You know how much time I spent? I read the whole 170-something page report. The least you can do is hit the like button. I know you probably hear this in 100 different places, and I hope I give you something a little bit different tonight. But hit the like button. Don't let me start being cantankerous and miserable about the like button. All right, people, I appreciate you. First of all, I appreciate you taking time out this time of night to be here, but please hit the like button while you're here. So, you get exempt from tax. You don't pay private taxes. So, for example, my friend Winston in the chat lives in Florida. He pays 2% property, 2% of the assessed value of his home for property taxes. So if your home is assessed at $1 million, you're gonna pay $20,000 a year, right? It's $2 million, you're gonna pay $40,000. That's how it works. Apparently, and I'm assuming here because I haven't read the Jamaica tax law, that you can avoid property. Doesn't mean so people gotta be very careful. In this chat today, I have some rules. We're not calling anybody corrupt and saying illegal things because we don't have evidence to substantiate that. I'm very conscious of not using terms to describe people when we don't have evidence to substantiate what we're saying. I deal in facts. Logic is good. I deal in facts, right? And you can draw your conclusion based on what we outline here tonight. So a lot of rich people, but I say a lot of rich people avoid taxes by figuring where the loopholes are, where the gray areas are, and make decisions based on that. There's a difference from evading taxes, which is doing something illegal. So you don't pay your tax. I know somebody comes on here called Muswin always telling me that you don't have to pay taxes. Well, I know what world you live in, but the world I live in, you have to pay taxes, right? So you can avoid tax, which is not illegal. If you evade tax, is illegal. When you register your company offshore, and if your company, the country that you reside in, doesn't require you to pay tax on certain income, and that offshore company and the offshore organization domicile location like St. Lucia doesn't, then you can avoid the taxes, right? So I think that's the rationale as to why he put this company there. Now, the ethical question is, or the moral question is, why would a politician whose primary objective is to serve the public good, who should be accountable, who should be ethical, who should fundamentally be doing the right thing, why would you want to avoid taxes, even if it's not illegal? Because some things may not be illegal, but they could be morally reprehensible, frankly, right? Separate but equal in the United States, for example, when it comes to, blacks not having the same rights as white, that was legal in the US, but it was not morally right. Reprehensible, frankly. So you could do something which is legal, but doesn't stand up to public scrutiny or pass that, what we call a sniff test. So he registered the company in St. Lucia. He dissolved the company in 2021. And I won't go through this entire article, but the reason for the dissolution seemed to be that St. Lucia, under pressure from the European Union, because a number of obviously European companies, I should say, were probably domiciling their headquarters or some of the companies in St. Lucia not paying taxes, pressure St. Lucia. So St. Lucia changed their rules to basically say, look, if you're going to do business here, first of all, you got to employ people here, and you're going to be subject to a certain amount of taxes for income generated there, right? So in essence, St. Lucia changed this rule because of the pressure. What you're seeing here is just the incorporation of ADMAT, which is the company that was incorporated in 2008. And around that same time, there was some issue with the prime minister about people saying, how can he afford, I think it was, this happened then, how can he afford that mansion that was built in Beverly Hills? I think it was done right. mid 2020s, something around there. So that question was being asked, right? So in essence, what St. Lucia is basically saying is that now you got to pay taxes, and he's basically like, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm going back to Jamaica, and I'm going to change ADMAT over into another company, and we'll get into that, right? So that's sort of the background. Now, at the same time, and I have a little tidbits here, I have a little things I put together, people. The Prime Minister, way back when, there were certain accusations, I think it was probably by the opposition, and here's what he had to say. And after we go through this, then we'll go through the discussion around the main topic of tonight, which is statutory declaration. Tell me if you can hear
this. Don't carry a grudge. I don't carry a grudge, but I'm human. So of course, I shook my head in disgust.
Wait, hold up, people. I think this, I gotta run this back from the beginning. It's very important, actually. It was him having a discussion about him being accused. And somehow this is not coming back. Him being accused and him trying to explain himself away. Let me run it and see what happens.
Don't carry a grudge. I don't carry a grudge, but I'm human. So of course, I shook my head in disgust at what was being said and what was being done. And I was also disappointed in Peter Phillips, a man who I had great respect for, someone who I had a very good relationship with his family and his children and his grandchildren. I know his son Mikhail fairly well, and I know Mikhail's children fairly well. They used to go to school with my children.
So that conversation was about him being accused. The question was around him and the mansion in Beverly Hills, right? And I think Peter Phillips obviously was the opposition then. Him basically saying that he was very disappointed in the accusations because obviously he's saying he got his resources from legitimate means, which seemed to suggest, as we all know, that the question has been asked for a while now about him and his resources and where he get those resources. So now we walk through the discussion, or what I call the presentation, that talks to the statutory declaration and what it all entails, right? So we go from the top. So I skipped the first page because, I didn't put a date on it. So what's an overview? What sort of is a statutory declaration? It's in Jamaica, statutory declaration by politicians are required to promote transparency, accountability, and integrity within public office. This legal obligation is part of the country's framework to prevent corruption and ensure that public officials, including members of parliament and other high-ranking officials, do not abuse their position for personal gain. So let me say this. In preparing for this and in reading through all the information, Jamaica has very good laws, actually. Jamaica has very good laws. The question that arises, do we follow them? We have good laws. Laws are out there. They make sense. They could work really well, but do we follow them? And the reason why I go back to the history is that if you think about one of the former education minister, Ruel Reid, who there was some perspective about alleged defalcation of funds or funds used for purposes that's not intended for. That was in 2019. Still can't hear nothing about it, people. What the situation is, when it's going to get resolved. So, and maybe I'm not following it close as I should, but that's what I know. So that's an overview of statutory declaration. It's meant to ensure that we can create that public trust and that and in the US, they have what they call financial disclosures for both the House and the Senate, right? You got to disclose, apart from Trump, by the way. Trump is not subject to this thing. Trump is living in a whole different world by himself. Supreme Court says he's immune from prosecution. He doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do. But most of the people will publish their tax returns and they'll publish their financial disclosure to show you how much money they make and the source of their income, right? So here, similar concept. Now, what's the background information for this in terms of integrity and anti-corruption framework? Statutory declarations are a key element of Jamaica's broader legal and regulatory framework aimed at curbing corruption in public office. And there's two main legislation. There's the Corruption Prevention Act and the Integrity Commission Act. And these laws that require public officials to submit and a declaration of their assets, liabilities, and income. Now, the one thing I see missing here right away, and maybe that's the auditor mean, I don't know why you're going to submit asset, liabilities, and income. What about your expenses? These three things go together without expenses, because your income minus your expenses will include left you in a deficit, at least for a given period of time, or in a positive position, which then add to your asset, or maybe add to your liability, or take from your asset. So this includes, so the things that they look at is bank accounts, real estate investments, and other form of wealth, whether personally or jointly owned with family members. Now, let me say this. So I'm going to start this from early. I'm going to save this for later. You guys remind me and tell me, because some of you have followed this, throughout this entire discussion that's being held about this whole declaration, right or wrong, and alleged things being made, the only joint I see any place is with him and his sons. I don't see any other joint there. I thought, if you read this, you think he's a bachelor. Seriously. If you go through this, and maybe it wasn't in published information here, but I would have sworn he was a bachelor. So the situation with Reed is still not resolved. People, we're talking about 2019. We're in 2024, going 2025. Let me just say this. In New York, we have Mayor Adams, who's now been charged with bribery, which, by the way, people, is no different from allegedly what Clarence Thomas has taken from his wealthy people. Menendez in New Jersey, senator, charged with the same thing, being convicted, probably going to go to jail. These things shouldn't take forever. Then the public lose trust in the environment it operates in and in the institutions that's supposed to protect the public and its assets. It's ridiculous that 2019 is when this was brought up, and 5 years later. So what normally happens is they drag it out and drag it out and drag it out. It leaves the people's consciousness, and it exudes and it goes away, and nobody focuses on it anymore. They have moved on. Yeah, Brian, we get to that. We get to that, Brian. It's interesting, right? They move on. They wear you down, wear you out, and move on. Please tell me how many politicians in Jamaica, and there have been a number of them that have gone through statutory declaration, they've had issues, have actually been prosecuted if they find that they legally utilize public funds. All right? Interesting. Some more background information. Why are statutory declarations necessary? The public has a right to know whether their leaders are enriching themselves through corruption. And these declarations provide a view into the financial status of public officials. To combat corruption, so you submit this statutory declaration, someone substantiate that they're okay, and you want to make sure that you do this to make sure it prevents misuse of funds. And then obviously it's legal requirement under the laws we mentioned, right? The previous law we mentioned, the CP and the ICA, I go back to those two, right? The Integrity Commission Act and the CPA, the Corruption Prevention Act. So those laws help to, in terms of protect the public. Now, in Jamaica, there's an Integrity Commission, and they're an independent body responsible for overseeing statutory declarations and ensuring compliance with Jamaica's anti-corruption laws. The commission investigates public officials who are suspected of breaching the law and of making false accusations. The commission can refer cases of illicit enrichment to the Director of Public Prosecution. And as you see, we go through this, they have made certain recommendations about follow-up investigation. It hasn't gone to the DCP because you have to have explicitly know that there's wrongdoing based on your investigation to be able to do so, right? And let me say this, people, about Integrity Commission. So I hear the Prime Minister and others talking about all these things are done for political means and they're trying to harm him. And I can understand the seat he's sitting and his perspective on that, even though he's been dogged by these questions about his financial situation for years. But I've reviewed the resumes of the 5-member body of that commission, the commissioners of that commission. I reviewed their resume. In fact, one of them went to one of my alma mater, went to Russie's actually, well, at least one of my alma maters. And they are lawyers, they're accomplished accountants. Some of them have been judges. Those resumes are stellar. I find it hard to believe that, one, they're all colluding. I mean, they all get together and say, you know, let's get the Prime Minister. And two is they would want to harm their own reputation, their own legacy, their own resume that built up over the years just to harm some prime minister about his financial situation, which has been dogged them for years, right? I don't think that's fair to them, and they can't come in the public vein to deny themselves. But I've worked in the audit profession for a long time before I retired. And I can tell you this, it's a very difficult profession to work in terms of your best reviews are your worst reviews. What do I mean? I mean, your best review is going to be reviews like this. You find something on somebody who's very, very senior, and then you're going to go through what they call the vetting process. So I have to go sit down with all these individuals, and it's going to be a lot of them, because you got to make hierarchically and chronologically, you're talking to the right people at the right level each time. You don't skip anyone because you're going to pay for it. And to explain and to make sure you have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, it's a painful process. And I can imagine it being the prime minister who has the highest office in the land, at least I think in Jamaica, and you be able to have explained to him that you have concern about his finances. That's not an easy conversation, no matter what seat you sit in, right? But luckily, these people have the statute, it appears, to bring forth these things regardless of the implication and the consequences. So we keep on going here. So I want to say that about the commission, because I think I've been hearing in certain circles, people pushing back on them, whether people are parochial in their views in terms of PMP or JLP. I don't think it's fair to the commission. They're trying to do their jobs. Sometimes they give output and outcomes that are not receivable. People don't want to receive it. It's too difficult. It's too toxic. It has implications. It is what it is. You do your job and you go home, you can sleep at night. I remember one review I did in my past where my boss didn't want to do the right thing, and he told me he could sleep at night, and then later on he did the right thing, and all hell broke loose. I'm telling people, all hell broke loose. And if he had done the right thing the first time when I told him, I could have managed the situation. All of us got tainted in that whole process because he was going to get a promotion at the zenith of the company, and he didn't want to take that risk of offending anyone. And because he got cold feet at the last minute, oh my Lord, you don't want to know the outcome. It wasn't pretty. So TD said, Cranky, let's be honest. The worst that can come from this is resignation. It just comes down to ethics and humanity and the whole. This is common for every nation that power and rich. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any resignation, actually. There's a lot more work to be done. When we go through, you'll see there's a lot more work to be done. I wanted this to be an hour, but it looks like it's going to be more than an hour. So there are examples of, I won't go through this, take much time on this, but there are examples of investigations. We have had statutory declarations made in Jamaica. People have been investigated. It normally ends up probably in a bin someplace. Now, it's very important for democracy, because democracy is about the people, right? That you require statutory declarations from politicians to foster a sense of integrity and trust in the Jamaica political system. But frankly, a lot of times I hear people, they don't trust the system. Even though we have good laws on the books, the good laws are not executed as they should to make sure that those who violate them feel the full brunt of the consequences associated with them violating those laws. So when you declare your asset, it should build confidence. I hear the Prime Minister complaining about his privacy. Mr. Prime Minister, the day you decide to become a politician, and you've been in there since, late 90s, the day you give up privacy. Now, I don't know why anyone, and the day you become a politician also, and you didn't go out and make your money first, you decide not to be rich. Let me say that again. The day you decide to become a politician, and you're running, and you want to go for the highest office, and you didn't go make your money like a lot of people do, like Trump did in real estate or Vance did in private equity, right? The day you decide not to do this, you decide you weren't going to be rich. And you want to serve the public good. And if it's about ego, you want to have that public acclaim and affection and affinity, that's great. But you shouldn't be getting rich from public money. So, Crank, we think about the CBDC. We'll get to some of those things yourself. We'll get to some of those things. Let me go through this. So democracy is important for this, and most Western countries have similar laws, right? Jamaica didn't just come up with this thing about statutory declaration, integrity commission out of the blue. It's a UN sort of chartered thing to have this for public good. They leverage Basel, which is sort of a governance group, in Switzerland to help them think about how to frame this. They look at Hong Kong as a location that had case laws and have done it before to think about how they should position this. So what they did was a smart thing, which is not being in a vacuum, but thinking holistically about it should be done, leveraging what has worked before in different places, almost get the best of a good world, and then look something was similar to what we do in Jamaica, like just Hong Kong, and leverage that. So whether it's how people violate and get penalized, how the court cases should go and have a precedent that you look at, they have done that, which is pretty good on their part. So let's talk about the investigation. All right, let's talk about the investigation. The investigation was initiated following concerns by the commissioners of the Integrity Commission regarding Andrew Holness' statutory declaration for 2021. These concerns focus on whether Mr. Holness owned assets disproportionate to his lawful earnings and whether he made false statements for 2019 to 2022. Now, the declaration was for 2021, but because when you're doing audit, you have a scope you're going to look at. So I'm going to look at 2021. That's my scope. That's for the year. Anything that falls in that year. But if I start finding things, you're going to do what they call scope creep, which is you may extend the scope because you're finding things which may affect the period you're looking at. So you can't just close your eyes and just have these boundaries. You have to extend it because then you wouldn't have gotten the full picture. That which is important. So the rationale for the investigation is that the commissioner obviously the commission referred it to the Integrity Commission, to the investigators basically, that they had concerns based on what they saw in the statutory declaration, and you'll see some of those, the rationale later on of why that was the case, right? And the main sort of rationale was that he had assets in the holding company called Imperium. The ADMAT I talked about at the inception of the discussion, ADMAT was dissolved and Imperium replaced ADMAT, and he put a lot of his assets in Imperium, right? And the concern was, one is he wasn't fully transparent about some bank accounts that were questioned, and secondly, that he had these companies, and Imperium is one of them, that had assets and they didn't have a lot of information concerning it. And you'll see some of the transactions moving in and out of these companies. What was the objective of the investigation? And this I pulled directly from the document, which is the 170 plus investigative report. And so the objective are, which is, what was the whole goal of this investigation? Did he have a requirement to file a statutory declaration? If so, was it done? Right? And if he did so, was it inaccurate or incomplete? Did he own assets which didn't align to his lawful earnings? And if he did, can he explain it? Did he breach both of these acts, which is the CPA and the Intercompany Commission Act, and also any income tax act, which we get to, because that was a part of this whole investigation, but was that breach? And was the business that he have, what those businesses and what was the nature of his engagement in those businesses? Right? So let's go to some of the allegations that came out of this. The investigation raised concern about illicit enrichment. And illicit enrichment just simply means that, I use plain Jamaica term, and this may be a bit more damning. Are your teeth in the public money? That's what some kind of think about it. Illicit means illegal, and enrichment means you're giving yourself something, right? You're increasing your wealth, basically. I put in a more frank term, which is I take the people their money. Good evening, Flo. Thank you, and good evening, know yourself. There also were omissions in the statutory declaration relating to bank accounts, which I mentioned before, which then one would say, if you give wrong information or you give false information, they both sort of value the same, right? You're giving false statements. The key finding was that he had assets. It increased by, every time I look at these numbers, I have to go divide them by like 150 or 155. So growth in net assets for 5 years, ending 2022, was about 51 million Jamaican dollars, and the unexplained portion was about 4 million, which is not material, frankly. Right? And obviously they were missing information in his bank account about the number of bank accounts he had. Now, I think he had about 28 bank accounts, And if you look through the document, there's more than 28 bank accounts related, because I think some of the ones for the companies may not have been his own individually. So whether it's Positive Media or Positive Jamaica Foundation, they have accounts themselves. They have also bank accounts. Now, what's the scope of the information? What's the breadth of information we want to cover? They want to look at his declared assets, so properties that he had, bank accounts that he had, investment that he had. What are all your assets, right? What are all your liabilities? You may owe mortgages, you may owe loans, you may have borrowed money. And then what's your source of income? Normally, it's from your salary, but you could have investment income. You could have dividends, you could have interest, you could have a business where you get income from. What are the income stream? Now, the one thing that's missing here, I think is also missing in terms of the concept of statutory declaration, is they don't have expenses here, right? Now, it's not them, it's the construct in terms of how this works, which is when statutory declarations require you to provide the wealth, the net wealth you have in a given period, less the income you generate. That will tell you whether or not you have illicit enrichment. I think it's misleading. I don't think it's right. I think they should change it, because expenses should be considered, because you could make $1 million and spend $1 million and you won't see where that went to, right? I don't understand the concept of no expenses being here, frankly. But there's income, liabilities, and assets, right? And then it also it has expenses in the declaration. If you look at the declaration statement that's put out by the government, it does have a different expenses to put there, but I'm not sure it requires. I think expenses to list are probably optional, not required. Not required, right? It's not required. So if it's not required, why would I put it in? And when you hear the Prime Minister, when he was talking to Parliament, saying, "Oh, I gave everything that was legally required," people, please hit the like button. You guys have been stopped in the middle of my dissertation, and because we have 34 likes and 86 people. Come on, people. This takes too much work for now to get no likes. You come in like my even though some of you are overlapping my Cranky Live sports crowd. Come on, people. Don't be miser with it. Some of you, most of you people here, if not all, are very seasoned individual. Please hit the like button. So and let me forget my train of thought, but I digress. No, talk about expenses. So they give you a pro forma list that have assets, liabilities, income, and it does give you an example of what expenses should be considered. And if you go to what the declaration entails, which comes from the UN, they have expense. They would say rent, for example, is an expense, right? Those things are expenses. So bless up Carlton Lovelace, Soldier. So those things are there. But when you hear the Prime Minister says, "I gave what was legally required," always be very focused on that word legally. Because I may ask you to give me your expenses. You say, "I'm not giving to you because it's not legally required." But I need those expenses to assess how you use the money that you make to see if you're illicitly enrich yourself. All right? Oh, Lord. I'm not saying anybody illicitly enrich themselves, Claudia. I'm staying away from that. I'm just giving the facts, ma'am. Just giving the facts. So what's the process you go through when you're doing this assessment? And I don't know why it's showing up on the screen like this, because when I look at my thing, it's much better, much clearer. But here's what they went through, right? They obtained information from witnesses, from responsible officers at the Complaint Division Integrity Commission. They got information from Parliament, because you got to go to Parliament to say, and they check all the boxes, people. Is this person the Prime Minister? Is he required to is he a member of Parliament? And is he required? He probably have his name and his identification and his birth date. We want to substantiate this is the person. Is he required to file a statutory declaration? Because they have to make sure they check all the boxes. That's all you do as an auditor. Got to have all the evidence. Got to start from step one. Can't miss a step, because you'll pay for it later. So they went to House of Parliament. They went to various financial institutions, all the one with the 28 bank accounts, and it's more than 28 of them, frankly. If they does business on stock exchange, if he does this with the land registrar office and there's land involved, if he does things with the tax authorities. So they've gone to the land agency. They've gone to the companies, because you got to register a company in Jamaica. The company's office. They went to the tax administration, Jamaica Stock Exchange, the auditors who audit his financial statements, and directors of his businesses. So it's a long list of people. And a lot of these give what they give these statements, right? Sort of witness statements, which in audit, we call it confirmation. If you give me, say you have 10 bank accounts and you have $1 million each account, I'm going to send what they call a confirmation to the bank and say, verify and substantiate what this person said they have is what they have. Now, in some instances, when they did for him and they came back, it did not line up. You hear him talk about examples of his covers accounts, which his parents opened for him in the 70s and 80s, and he seemed to dismiss it as them being overly picky, and he wouldn't have known about the account because they used the account. There were transactions flowing through those accounts, and that's why they became very important. So don't disagree that if you put me as a beneficiary in your account, and it's 20 years ago or 30 years ago, how am I going to know about it? But if you're moving money through that account at some way, shape, or form, and it's a decent amount of money sometime, I wouldn't say there's a ton of transaction, and that's a concern. He had an account with some constituent he had, or somebody who worked for him, like 20 years ago? And he couldn't recall the account. But her name was on the account, and his name was on the account. What's a politician doing with some worker bank account? His explanation was he used it to pay her. Really? Seems interesting. So they would send information to all these individuals. They would collect evidence. They'd review the information. And then they said, you know what? Given how complex some of this, especially with the companies that he have, let's go get what we call a forensic person, somebody who understands how to do investigative type audits at a certain level, especially financial institutions. So they went overseas and got one, and he did work for 6 months. So they did a lot of work. So Carter Lovelace say, I think this is just a witch hunt. So we'll go through this, Carter Lovelace, because I think here's the people you should do, people. When you come to these environment and have the discussion, please come with an open mind. Don't come with a closed mind. I don't want anybody to say, if somebody is saying Kamala Harris, who I support versus Trump, did something illegal, I'm not going to say it's a witch hunt. I'm going to say, show me the evidence. So Carter and Lovelace, I just explained at the inception of this discussion that the people who head the commission are some of the people with the highest profile in Jamaica, who I would find it hard to believe that they want to ruin their reputation. They would hold grudges. As the Prime Minister, he doesn't hold grudges. And they're trying to get the Prime Minister. Carter and Lovelace, do you know how difficult it is to bring this against a Prime Minister? And let me say this, people. I'm going to use a very poor analogy. It's like a very poor analogy. I'm not going to use that analogy. Think about an analogy. It's like somebody says, I know what it is to be Messi, meaning Messi, the football player. And I've played, and who played in the Bernabeu and played all the world and at the highest level, and the pressure he feels. No, you don't. You may have in your job feel pressure, but you don't understand the pressure that he's feeling. I can tell you, I can just imagine being the seat of the commissioners or the auditors who are involved in this and trying to say, you know what, guys, we got to publish this report. And the implications of it, the public perception, the public perspective, the both sides of the aisle saying, GLP saying, when I try bring down the man, a bad mind, a bad mind, a bad mind, a bad mind. Because I don't love that to Jamaica, I know. I don't love talk about bad mind. Okay, my bad mind. So then let's talk about the facts. Let's say my bad mind, I'm jealous. Let's talk about the facts. Let's talk about what I find and talk about the merits of the case. Stop saying it's a witch hunt without getting the intelligent information first, then make an informed decision. Ask yourself the question, would I question these things? People's only 46 likes. Hey, Claudine, please encourage these people in the chat to hit the like button. You're my proxy on this because you love to do this. So Carlton, please just go to the process first. Then you can enjoy your conclusion, right? I don't like when somebody says this is a witch hunt when they don't have evidence to say it's a witch hunt. It's not a good look. This is a process, people. This is a normal audit process. You have a scope. You think about what you're reviewing. You think about what you're trying to cover. You try to get evidence to substantiate. You need factual evidence to substantiate what you're doing, and then you draw a conclusion. So what do they look at? They look at over 3,600 transactions from 28 bank accounts. It's a lot of transactions, people. Now, I would say this, because this is important, people. If you have, in some countries, and so probably in Jamaica, if you have an investment property, for example, you may put it under what they call a limited liability company or incorporated. And the primary reason is for a legal one. And also to be able to separate your income. So you want to make sure all your expense and income for the property is isolated to the property. But most importantly, you want to make sure if something happens to the property, you get sued, that this property is self-contained. And if they can't pierce what they call the corporate veil, then that property stands on its own and your personal assets don't get, commingled with those assets, right? So if you say you have a house, you buy investment property, incorporate under Claudine Incorporated, it stands alone. The income that you make from rent go to the property, and expense you have gas, light, what property taxes go against it, and the income you make will then roll to you. And what normally happens in these companies is that they call normally a pass-through entity if you're an individual, because all the net number will come to you. So you make a profit, it comes to you, get a loss, it comes to you, versus you got to commingle all of this, right? Now, 3,600 transactions from 28 bank accounts, it's a lot of transaction for an individual. 80 plus witness statements. So the witness statements, as I mentioned before, I think they send to, like, if there's a secretary for the company, if there are directors in the company, they're sent to the banks. They say 80 witness statements. If you have 28 bank accounts, that's at a minimum 28 witness statements. They may send witness statements to a number of different parties, to Parliament. You see all the, I'll go back, all the organizations I listed before, National Land Agency, somebody there, seen enough position with enough authority to sign, signatory authority, have to respond to the request that they made, right? And then, as I indicated before, they brought in an expert because they believe that they need an expert given some of the things that they were seeing. Yeah, Rockford, I think people need to be open-minded, all right? They need to be open-minded. I'm not saying right or wrong. I don't have a stake in this, people. I'm just calling the facts like I see them. I'm not PMP or JLP. I'm a third party. I am transparent organization. What do you call it? I don't have a stake in this. I'm just calling it like I see it. And I draw no conclusions. I'm not saying the Prime Minister is corrupt. I'm not saying they're not, that he isn't. I'm just saying that it's facts as much as they can speak for themselves. Now, in terms of independent forensic report, the Prime Minister has about 3 companies. He has Imperium Holdings, which he keep all his personal assets. He has Estatebridge Development Company, which is a construction company, which he had with one of the, you'll see the conflict that comes out. One of the members of his parliament is involved as a minority shareholder. I think his sister is also involved. He has Positive Media, which is the one that manages sort of his image and his rights, right? But what you see also is there's a lot of transaction between these 3 companies. Because they're trying to, it says here, the investigation focused on understanding the interplay between Mr. Holness and these companies. There's a lot of transactions, people. A lot of in and outs. Your head spin. That's why they're struggling. That's why they went to the FID, because they want to do much more investigation. A lot of money moving in and out. And also, one of the key issues identified, which we'll go through, is the tax compliance of these companies, whether they comply with tax requirements. What I had here that it should be noted, that he's filed all statutory required declaration for the as member of parliament, right? From 1997 through, I think it's 22 or 23. Now, here are the findings from the review. So we talked about the review, right? They got a statutory declaration. They checked the bank accounts. The number wasn't right. They went back to him and said, look, what you give us may not be correct. He came back and he was wrong again. They went back to him and he came back, and then they figured out what the right numbers were in terms of bank account, just a bank accounts. Then they start doing their review, getting witness statements. And as you see, go through here, there are a bunch of things that they found, and it's more in the findings, which some of them are concerning. So here are the findings. The first one is a potential legal breach and false statements in the statutory declaration. So it's about the omission. He failed to declare several bank accounts, like I mentioned before, including joint accounts. Now, the joint accounts are not with his wife, people. They're normally with probably somebody else or with his sons. In his initial 21 statutory declaration, which could constitute what is deemed to be a false statement under the ICA, the Integrity Commissions Act. The omitted accounts, and I put them here, were NCB account and First Global, and he tell you that these are historical accounts that he had with his parents. The final outcome was that the omissions were found to be inadvertent rather than intentional. And if you give wrong information at the outset, it's deemed to be inaccurate. But one could say, you know what, dismiss this because it was material. He had some accounts, they had some transactions, but it's one of the findings that they have, but they weren't deemed to be material, right? It's one of the findings they have because he made omissions a couple of times. And let me say this another thing, people, which is important. What they did, the report is expansive. I probably would have put half the report in an appendix, but they knew this was so sensitive. You know what? I need some water, people. Give me a second. When you talk for like half an hour straight or 44 minutes straight, you need water to process. They were, and Carter Lovelace, this is for you. They were so concerned about the implications of this, they made sure they give you from day one to the end of the process exactly what they did. They put all the witness statements or confirmation in the document. They had so much detail, which you normally do in an audit report. Audit report is normally summarized. It depends on the nature of the audit. Financial statement audits, you have financial statements, maybe some reports of recommendations. In a traditional audit, internal controls, or the operations of a company, you may have a 3 or 4 page report. Some company may want much more details. The report is never 170 some pages. But they were so concerned to make sure everyone see exactly what they went through. They put in there a ton of information. You now put in that report. Some is in too detailed and too basic, but they have it there for a reason. They summarize the investigation, then they put all the details, then they tell you what the recommendations are and what their conclusions were. So they were very cognizant and conscious of the perspective and perception of those who are going to read the report. And they also are very conscious that people are going to take sides, especially the people in this party, right? Let's see, 1 second, people. So Carter Love says, I read all of it, and you are one who is watching can show me what Andrew Corrupt killed that pension, 1,500 US. Yeah, so we'll get to that, Carter. We'll get to the Carton. Because you read all of it, but sometimes you got to read a report with a different perspective on it. And I'm not saying he's corrupt, people, so don't say cranky, say he's corrupt. I'm just telling you what it is. So the bank account thing was deemed to be not material from what I said. Because even though he missed some accounts, even though the one that he had with the co-worker, they didn't talk about whether or not it had transactions going through it. But some with his parents did have transactions of decent sum going through it, where he was on as beneficiary. Unexplained net worth. Now, the investigation found that there was no significant unexplained growth in Mr. Holness' net worth for 2021, but there was unexplained net worth in 2022. And to me, that number wasn't even material either. In 2022 findings, though, the analysis revealed that assets were disproportionate to his lawful earnings, but due to incomplete records, particularly around his personal expenses, they couldn't draw a conclusion as to whether or not it was illicit, could be drawn, right? So they didn't have enough information and didn't have his expenses to see what he spent his money on. But his net worth went up by, and I had to, is like 300-something thousand US over 5 years. You can deem whether or not that's reasonable or not. If you look at some of his financials from 2008, way back when, probably had over $1 million in terms of properties, frankly. Million US I'm talking about, not Jamaica. Under Jamaican law, public officials are required to explain any significant increase in wealth that cannot be accounted for by lawful income. If you can't explain it, it becomes illicit enrichment. Now, I put on here, which is important. The investigation was hindered by Holness's refusal to provide a breakdown of his personal expenses and unresolved questions about the operation of connected companies. So the main concern here, they're going to be, the findings coming up are even more imperative and more concerning. So here they're saying, look, for us to say if you have illicit enrichment or not, we need more information about the companies you operate and about your expenses. And they don't have that information, so they couldn't draw a conclusion. That's why they refer to the FID, frankly. Now, tax compliance. Now, here's where it gets a little bit juicy, right? Imperium Investment Holding Company, which is the one which, as we talked about before, was ADMAT before in St. Lucia, which he brought to Jamaica, and he dissolved ADMAT and started Imperium. That's where he put all his assets, right? Positive Media Solutions manages his image and his social media and communication. And then Estatebridge is his construction company. They all filed nil tax returns for 2021 and 2022, which means that they did not declare any income or expenses during the period. Let me say it again. He has 3 companies. The question is, did they make money? Because they made money, why didn't they file their tax return? Because nil tax return, that means you didn't make enough income to file tax returns. However, as it's stated here, these filings are in contrast to the financial statements provided by the companies, which indicated that they had engaged in revenue-generating activities. So, for example, Imperium made about 5 million Jamaican and 5 and 6 million in 21 and 22, which is probably from dividends, interest, probably because he has investment accounts. That wasn't reported. Positive Media made 20 million from projects events in 2021, wasn't reported. Estatebridge made reported interest income of $1 million for 2021. Probably didn't report in 2022. So, and Greenemerald Trading Company, which is not a company he owns, but who he does business with, they didn't file one in 21, but they filed one in 2022. By the way, he has, if you read through Greenemerald, it's Greenemerald Trading Company. The individuals there doesn't seem to have any connection to him, Yeah, there's money passing back and forth, which doesn't make any sense, frankly. Right? So the filing of the tax return, if you don't file a tax return, you made income, then you violate Jamaica tax laws. Simply what this is saying. Now, conflict of interest. Now, this gets even more interesting. It was a $50 million loan obtained by Imperium, which is the company we talked about before, the one where you have all these assets in, from Burita Investments Limited, which is a company in Jamaica that does business on the stock exchange. It had several irregularities, frankly. So if I give you a $50 million loan, you're going to say, look, your loan got to be backed by collateral, or it's unsecured. That means, you know what? It's not secured by an asset. And the collateral basically means if you default on the loan, I take whatever it is that you have. So, for example, when you buy a house and you get a mortgage, the house becomes the collateral, right? So you go to the bank, you have a closing to buy the house, you give them your down payment, you get a loan from the bank. The bank say, you know what? Until you pay off this loan, the house is my collateral. So if you can't pay off the loan, you go bankrupt and you go default, I'm gonna sell the house and take my money back. The $50 million loan I got from, here's how this process worked, people. It was an interesting one. So I got the loan from this organization. Supposedly it was a special customer. The collateral was 3 components of the collateral. There was one where they bought some, they took the money in, right? Normally the collateral is gotta be existent at the time of the transaction. Can't be afterwards. So they took half of that money and buy Greenemerald Trading shares in the company, right? But this transaction occurred after this loan was given. I think it occurred a few days after the loan was given. So you actually took the loan and buy these shares and then said the shares are the collateral for the loan. Well, it's a little bit reversed. They have to be done simultaneously because if you took the money and didn't buy the shares, I would have no collateral. Secondly, there was no registration of the mortgage, right? That was supposed to collateralize the loan. There was using some property to collateralize the loan. It wasn't registered. So therefore, if it's not, you can't say it was collateral for it. And third, there was supposed to be some kind of insurance contract that they had. Was supposed to underwrite this and help support it. So it was going to be 3 pieces of the collateral. They can't. The insurance thing was null and void. There was no insurance thing there to be looked at. Carter and Lovelace, you should think about that. So all this collateral we talk about, you can't substantiate the collateral because the loan looked like an unsecured loan. Now, when they investigated from Burita, they were saying, well, he's a special client, so they didn't necessarily ask some of these things, or he doesn't have to sign certain things, and those things are nonsense. Any company worth their salt is going to make sure they get collateral which protect them. Because if you don't, it's unsecured. The person can default and you'll get repaid because then it goes, you don't have any specific asset to go against. You may have first preference if he goes bankrupt, you go after the shares first before any other potential holders of loans on his organization. The second one's about appointment of close associates. So the appointment of Norman Brown, who's a business associate of Holness, and then the minority shareholder in Estatebridge. Estatebridge is the construction company that he has, which sort of buy and develop properties and land. He's also the chairman of the Urban Development Corporation and the Housing Agency of Jamaica. And what they're saying is this is a conflict of interest. How can you have a business associate who hold offices which sits under you, the Prime Minister? It's part of your portfolio. How does that work? That cannot be okay. That's a conflict of interest. And you guys hear me talk a lot, and we're going to digress a little bit about the JFF. If you're not familiar with JFF, it's the Jamaica Football Federation. Those of you who are here but are not familiar with that. And the conflict that they may have in the organization is the same concept. It's a conflict. Now, conflicts are inherent sometimes to doing business, but you can manage conflict. This is not okay. This is not okay, people. It's not okay for you to be in business with a minister who's head of a couple of organizations, and you are in those organizations, and then you're managed shareholder. And by the way, people, as the minority shareholder of Estatebridge, he looked like he contributed the most money to Estatebridge, which is really interesting. Because now you're a minority shareholder, you're not contributing the most money. Now, you can say the way you think about the money is, if I have a company and you're the minority shareholder, if I'm doing a lot of the work, I'm able to quantify my work and equate it to what you put in monetarily, but we didn't see that, right? So from a conflict of interest standpoint, there's 2 things. There's the loan and the regulators around the loan, and the loan was collateralized, and whatever was the case, it's just a friend loan. You guys remember there was a Prime Minister of Jamaica who got a $2 million loan and said he forgot about? You would think people would have learned from that, right? $2 million of loans, and he forgot about US dollar, by the way. Forgot about it. And then appointing somebody who's a business associate, who is also a part of your company, because a 3-person member that owns Estatebridge, to be here, and that person then oversees 2 agencies, that can't be okay. That can't be okay. Now, here's another interesting part, which is where some of the FID recommendation comes in terms of forwarding this to the FID to look into. There are significant intercompany transactions were observed between Positive Media and Imperium. So Positive Media is his image company. Imperium is where he put most of his assets, right? And I struggle with how do they calculate what his net worth is. Do they take like Positive Media and say, do you own, because he owned these companies apart from Imperium with his sons, you know, or other individuals. How do you figure out what the value is? Because the statutory declaration is not based on the value of an asset, you know. It's based on what the cost of the asset is. So I'll give you an example. If you buy a house for $50,000 today, and a year from now is when you do the declaration, and it's now valued $200,000, it's only $50,000 that goes there. It's a cost basis, which I find really interesting about how they do the calculation. So the value is not there. So here's how I could circumvent these people. It's really interesting. These things got holes in them. Say I buy a house for $40,000. You know what? Some of them, but for $40,000. Because I talk about enrichment. But tell a person, me get a supply thing under the table too. Say add about 3 levels to this house. They're not going back and check all that, you know. They're very focused on that house and what the house cost was. So you probably can do addition to it and it not being scrutinized. I think the concept on how they do this, and it's not a Jamaica thing exclusively, I am not necessarily in agreement with how they do some of these things, but that's how they do it. So if you look at this, what it says here, this note says, Imperium Holdings, Positive Media, and Estatebridge, which is the 3 companies, as I said before, I repeat, Imperium took over from ADMAT, own all his assets. A lot of his personal stuff goes through there. I don't think he does anything separate and distinct from the company. Positive Media run his image rights and social media, and Estatebridge is the construction company. They had deposits over a 2-year period of about $473 million and withdrawal of $427 million. So that's where the confusion comes in, because you're like, what is this money going back and forth? What does this entail? Who's putting money in? Who's taking the money out? Why is there money between these companies? They're confused. There was another item that came up around the misuse of charitable funds in this whole equation. Questions were raised about the alleged use of funds belonging to Positive Jamaica Foundation. Is another supposedly charitable organization that the Prime Minister owns, and he say use it for different purpose, maybe to give scholarship and all that. And a bond was bought where some of the proceeds from the organization was used to buy the bond of $94,000. There were 2 bonds, totaling over $200,000. One was separate. The $94,000 one, they could see the 60-something plus thousand that came from his accounts, Imperium, whatever it was, to buy the bond. They saw about 30-something thousand that came from the charity. They questioned it. He said it was a mistake on the bank's part, and the bank did it wrong. And the bank said, no, so you go. No, sir, we do it right. That's what you tell us to do. And that was going on for about 2 years, people. So, and he got statements about the bond. The bond was redeemed. And he's putting off, saying, no, they were wrong. And he's just saying, no, we're right. We know what we did is right. You told us to do this. And you're saying, no, I didn't. It was a mistake. It was misleading. Eventually, he put the money back in the charity, I guess, and they resolved the situation. But it was only after the investigation brought this up that occurred. All right? That didn't just occur out of a vacuum. Now, the key conclusions reached from this. The director of investigation, if you think about it, given all the transaction between all these companies, given all these conflicts, what about these companies? They're saying, you know what? We don't have the insight into his expenses. We don't know all this money coming in and out. We can't say whether or not there's a little enrichment. We don't have his expenses. We have a question about the companies and the operations. We can't draw conclusions. They say, however, we believe that the inability or the fact that the companies that he is party to haven't filed tax compliance statements, but because you all guys hear about, Jeff, I was talking about compliance, tax compliance, right? They have issues surrounding whether, you know what, the filings with the organizations were okay. And therefore, they don't think the statutory declaration is complete. So, Mr. Lovelace, you can draw a conclusion from that. So here's the recommendations that they made. They made referral to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for potential offenses related to the false declaration. And the false declaration were not just people about the bank statement. If you go to the report, there are a bunch of stuff in there that was said that got corrected later on. And there's a bunch of times in there where both the Prime Minister and some of his associates, what we call lawyer up. So they say, you know what? We don't talk to you without a lawyer. Now, normally when we start lawyer up, people just have suspicion, right? And at one point, he refused to answer certain questions. He refused to provide his expenses, and him lawyer people. You can't talk with my law. And then his lawyers start pushing back on certain things. And the reason why the investigation took about 2 years was because, you know what? If you look through the sequence of events, sometimes it took him 3 months to get back with certain information. 3 months. As an auditor, that's painful. Are you trying to get the audit done? So here are the recommendations they made. Refer to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for potential offensive related to false statement in the statutory declaration. They obviously went to the tax commission and say, look, you got to look into these companies. They're not paying taxes. They're making money. They went to the FID, Financial Investigation Division, to say, look, we couldn't figure out all these companies that he have and all these transactions. It needs further inquiry. They referred to the Ethics Committee of Parliament to examine the appropriateness of the appointing business associates to public boards, right? Which is important. And to even be minister, they probably should look into the old ministerial aspect of what their roles are, I should say. And then they refer to the Financial Service Commission, so that heads your stock exchange and those organizations, about the Barrister investments, and are they complying with laws and standards, given what you should require to issue a loan to someone who is independent of the organization. 5 referrals all make sense to me, given what they saw, because at the end of the day, they couldn't draw any conclusion. Now, I know that people like Carlton Lovelace, we said him, I try to read what the Prime Minister, what the Prime Minister says. I think the facts speak for themselves. Did he do anything wrong? We don't know. We have no idea because there's so much stuff going in and out. People are confused. But anybody who's going to avoid taxes as a public servant, you're going to have concern about him. I know Carlton Lovelace because you don't have an objective bone in your body. So I'm going to make you laugh. At least when it comes to your Prime Minister and your party. So these are sort of the final thoughts. There was no wrongdoing could be confirmed because you can't draw any conclusion. Here's what's interesting, and I have this here. And Lovelace, think about it, Lois. Lovelace, you think about this. It was interesting to see that there appears to be there should be joint people. I'm not sure I spelled that wrong. And I had some appendix here. Let me go back. It should have been joint. There are no joint accounts. It should be joint accounts with Holness' spouse as it relates to her assets. Some misspelling there. I need to change that. So when you go through the whole process, people, and they're joint accounts, the men have 28 bank accounts and none of them with his wife. Right. How does that work? Lovelace, explain that one to me. Lovelace, explain that one to me. How do you have 28 bank accounts? And if you add in the company ones, they're even more, and you can point out one account the man have with his wife. I don't know, boy. Maybe they don't have prenup. I don't know how that works. But I found that to be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Don't know how that works, people, but it works. Now, let me finish this off. I would think that if you're married to them, at least you have an account that you share stuff with, right? So the Prime Minister hit back. He filed a lawsuit. And here's sort of the generic information of it. They claim the Investment Commission unlawfully delegates responsibility to the Financial Investigation Division and Tax Administration, because based on what they found in the companies, that's what they did. They say it's unlawful. It challenges the Integrity Commission's authority to refer the case, arguing that it violated the ICA Act, which I find interesting. Let me go back up here. His lawyer asserts that the Integrity Commission did not follow due process by not offering him a chance to defend his financial declaration before making the report public. Let me say these people, go read the report. The man had a lot of information provided to him, had a lot of chance to respond to stuff. He wasn't cooperative in some instances. The more deeper they got, the less cooperative he became. Huh? Please. His team argued that the IC breached constitutional rights by not ensuring fairness and confidentiality. I don't buy that. I read through the report. I think they gave him ample time to do a bunch of stuff. They had to make a decision at some point. They can't spin themselves around. It went on for 2 years. So what are the repercussions? He's saying the report was politically motivated. That's always the thing of people. Me cry say me work hard. Me cry say politically motivated. Me cry say them bad mind. That's not the thing that people utilize in this situation, which is what he's doing. He says the misappropriation from charity was wrong, caught him based on damaging to his reputation. Let me just say this about Carter Lovelace. This is one thing I'll say about this. There is no mistake in that one when you read through it. It's factual. He was contradicted by the organization which acquired the bond on his behalf. The money came from the charity, and he was there sitting on there for like 1 or 2 years before it actually get rectified. And he knows this. And it'd be interesting what the courts rule on this. It's going to be interesting. So the lawsuit includes application for about 20 specific court orders to block any further investigation by the FID. What we always do. So we're innocent, then we want block investigation. If you're pure and you don't have no problem and you don't have no issue, let them investigate. Who cares? I know I'm in good place. Of course you don't. And he wants to block things like criminal investigation or tax assessments. You made money. You don't file the tax return that you should. The law says you need to do so. In fact, they quote in the document the laws itself and the possible or probable punishment that one receive for not applying or adhering to the law. It's not disputable. It's not ambiguous. It's pretty clear. Now, how you administer those punishment, we don't know. So public perception, obviously lawsuit, people are taking sides in this. And it's not a good thing for Jamaica because if they rule against the IC, I don't know where we go from there. And if they rule for the IC, you're going to say, you know what, the court's bad man against him. So they can't win. If you don't agree with your bad man against him, if you rule for him, it will undermine the whole process. If you don't rule for him, you're going to have people say a bad mind and you try to fight the prime minister, you want to get to the prime minister and all sort of stuff. So that's really interesting, people. I'm having some problem with my mouse here. I'm going to take this down. So when I was going through the process, I had some really a number of questions, but I'm trying to pull up, but my mouse has frozen on me, which is not good. Let me see what some of the comments are, and I'll try to get this down. Kevin Thompson says, I'll wait on the court because anybody can write things about you. So based on accounting, you wait figures if the calculations are wrong. No. You're conflating two different things. You're conflating two different things. The accounting is simple as daylight. It's simple. What you can't figure out is you have over $400 million moving in and out of different companies, and you don't know what the objective is, the purpose is, what the source. That's the question that's arising. So no courts can figure that out. You got to do investigation to figure it out. It's not anybody can write things about you. You guys should read. Here's my frustration with people sometimes. You don't want to spend time to read the report, and then you want to kick out the report and say, no, you're not good. Go read the report. Go to the report in detail. Now, people like myself who are in the business of doing audits will understand certain things there, which made it a bit nuanced. But I don't think it's fair to say the report not good and it's parochial in terms of party and it's biased. We need to go either get some at least read the report first. If you don't understand somebody, ask them about certain aspects of it. Don't just come and say, oh, the report is unfair when you have read the report. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Right? That's not a good thing. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I don't think anybody should do that. Trying to pull up something here. And I can't find it. I'm not going to be able to find it. But yeah, I just get a little bit perturbed. I use that word perturbed, where people sort of basically say certain things because they don't want to pry more to figure out what the real truth is. As I said, I have no stake in this. I just thought it was very interesting. And I went through and did my review of the report, which, by the way, you hear me complain about not getting the likes from you guys because it took a lot of time. And just to try to figure out what is that they reviewed, what they find, What's causing all these consternation and concern? So I had some questions. So Claudine says, talk all you want, Cranky. Jamaica is the only place where if you're rich, lights, link, kinked, and have connection, then you appear for your crimes, and sadly you have disillusioned people. Yeah, I mean, that's a fact, actually. That's not speculation. That's not being alleged. The history have shown and experience have shown that a lot of times in Jamaica, when people get accused of fraud, not only in the government, but even in the private sector, nothing happens. So Claudine, hear what you're saying. So here are some of my questions that I had people. That's 4 minutes I go through. So the commission indicated that there was no unexplained growth for 2021. And my view is, well, how do you know? You haven't looked at these expenses. I know the expense focus on the companies, but you still haven't looked at these expenses. I'm not sure you come to that conclusion. Given the nature of ADMAT and transfer assets of ADMAT in prior year, I'm curious who signed up on the previous, are all the previous statutory declarations okay? Because one of my first questions when I started reading this, which is, well, some of these companies were probably, like ADMAT's around for a while. Did we substantiate the assets in ADMAT way back when? When he had $1 million worth of properties way back in the mid-2000s, did we look into those? Who signed off on those previous statutory declarations? I don't know. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why. One of my questions was, why they review asset liabilities and income? I think it's sort of based on the UN sort of charter on the statutory declaration. But to me, you have to have the expenses to draw you have a complete picture as to how I made money, how I used the money, and what I have left. Or did I use some from my savings, for example? Even though your savings is also considered part of that asset number. Right? So that's interesting. So was there any issue with these prior declarations? And did they have to go back and look at those to make sure they're okay? I was on page 8 of the report also, it indicated that unexplained asset was acquired in 2019, to which the source of fund was unexplained. So the question is, if that was missed in 2019, how do you sign up on the declaration, for example? That's confusing to me. Right? If the investigation results are true, there are implications for not filing tax returns in case where the companies had operations of generated income. So here's another question. Are these pass-through tax entities? When the Prime Minister filed his tax return, how does that relate to the companies that he owned, especially the company where all his assets are in? How does that relate to his own tax return? Are they supposed to be combined? Are they separate? Does income transfer over? Would he be double taxed if you take the income from one company to his own? Or does he have a pass-through entity whereby he's taxed as one entity? Those things are, I don't know Jamaica tax law greatly, but it's confusing to me. There was a question 21 in the document where a query was made on October 25th, 2023. He didn't respond to like December 4th. When the requested response date was October 31st. Because sometimes people are asking questions you can't answer. All right? When they asked Mark Ozon, who was one of the directors of the media company, initial question, he say he's part of the business, but he's not involved at all. And didn't contribute to the business. So why was he there in the first place? Why did he have a role? When they requested from Greenemerald, the company that he does business with and gave loans to this company, there's no affiliation. As soon as they ask them a question, they lawyer up. They run to the lawyer. And then when Azan decided to come clean, Mark Azan, he also lawyered up. So everybody are lawyer people. Now, there was an attorney at law, Donovan Williams. He's secretary, and I think he's a parliament member also. He's secretary for 3 of these companies. Again, he goes back to conflict of interest. I don't think they talked about that a lot in terms of the conflict. Conflict they focused on was Brown, who heads up those 2 entities, including the Urban Development Corp. But to me, this is also a conflict which is not being addressed. And how you have somebody being secretary of your companies, and this person is also in parliament. And also, when they look, he has all the financial statements for a few of his companies. And I'm like, why do you need audit financials? They're not public companies. Is there a requirement for you to audit financials? Because that costs money. I wonder why that's the case. Or do other people have interest in it so they need to know what happens there? So the questions I had. Yeah, I don't know how come they not able to get access to the expenses. I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure how you do a thorough review without having access to the expenses. And there's some restriction in the rules that allows it actually. And for the 94,000 bond that was issued, it basically says here the organization he did because he's saying he communicates things verbally. It's not standard practice for the firm to take verbal instruction. The opening agreement speaks to this also. So you have a client opening agreement which talks to how you transact this business. It says to the contrary. And it said the company indicated the bond was called early and the process and principal transferred to Mr. Holness Holding Company, which is Imperium. And therefore, you can't make any corrections to what he said should have occurred, which is the proceeds shouldn't have come from the charitable organization to buy the part of the bond, pay part of the bond. So it's interesting, people, between the review that was done, the investigation that was done, the subsequent lawsuit that was filed. And if you look to the history, if you look at his history, where there have been questions about his finances, the more recent declaration and the questions being asked, and then his response, because his response to me is like Trump, I'm just going to go harder than they come at me. I'm going to protest, and they'll just cave away. My hope is that, and I don't know whether or not they're illicit stuff here, but my hope is that these people don't acquiesce, they go through the process. Good evening.
Blessings, Cranky.
Blessings, Parish Council. How are you doing?
Damn boss. I listen to the reason,
Yes.
And let me just cut to the chase because our time after 9 today, Friday.
Yeah.
Where does the Prime Minister get all this time to be running a country?
Parish Council. First of all, people, brilliant question, Parish Council. In a lot of in some countries, and in the US actually, not only the president, but normally what you do when you become the prime minister, or for example, I worked at a company previously. I won't say which company. I said it the other day, where the person becomes treasury of the US, and they put their assets, a lot of assets, by the way, in a trust, which is you don't manage it, right? Somebody manage it for you. You're agnostic to it because you don't want to say you're conflicted. You ain't gonna manage it. Wait, exactly. Parish Council, you hit the nail on the head. Where you get time for? Not only that, Parish Council, here's another thing, people, which is very important. When you're the prime minister and you have a company that does construction, that does trading and investment, and you're making decisions which have country implications, market implications, you'll have what they call in markets inside information. That means you can take your proceeds out of the market if things are going to go down and put them if they're going to go up so you can benefit from it. That's also a concern. That's why it's going to a trust. So you're agnostic to it. You have no control over it. Go ahead, Parish Council. Sorry, go ahead.
But thank you. Let me say still. All right. So I ask the question, and it's an important question. And you say you make clear reference. So you want to ask as well. There are any other leaders of any country? You talk about the trust. So basically, we are saying other leaders who have a substantial amount of assets would normally put it in a trust so it not conflicted with them.
With their duties,
parliament duties,
yes,
right? So
yes.
we basically answer that. So basically, that is what he should have done if he start finding himself accumulate a whole heap of funds.
No, well, he probably should have done that before he became prime minister. Education minister probably should have, but given his role today, he should have done that, right? He should have done that as prime minister. You should even go ahead. Yeah.
A 19 agency, the man operate,
Yeah.
He's the chief of defense,
And do everything.
He's a member of parliament also for your constituency.
Right. Parish Council, that makes it worse actually. Because he's touching almost everything. That makes it 10 times worse.
So a man can argue for even Andrew right now for say, boy, maybe this is one of the greatest Jamaicans we ever see.
Yeah.
Andrew Holness. Based on the amount of work that this man accumulates and feet to shoulder him.
Yeah.
And operate a business that is clearly being successful, whether it's illicit or not. Him have money. You understand?
Yeah.
And he might do a lot, even for the Caribbean. He might have some posts, you know, for, where England did give him some, I don't know if you know this, he may get something in the Caribbean region too, man. Where basically in response to that, him get PhD. The man is a great man. So I hear this. And great man. Think about it, cranky.
Yeah, he's doing a lot.
Moving from the illicit part and this, I talk about the capability of one individual.
Right.
For do so much things that basically say within about 10 years.
Yeah.
Basically 10 years now, him, you know, solidify himself in the party and turn lead and whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, you know, me look on the illicit part and the rare, but I said to myself, apart to the fact say, boy, when you get the time, you really have to wonder to yourself, and all right, what do you mean cartel them come out and by them own admission, them say the place look developed.
Right.
Them come whole heap of high-rising building, pothole on the road them still, but you know, road still a bill. So I said to myself, say, this man, when I really think about this still cranky. He's a great man. You know, like
well, and Parish Council, that's your perspective. So are you Labour or PNP Parish Council?
Yeah, PNP, man.
Yeah, PNP. Yeah, okay. So your objective when it comes to him then, you're saying he does a lot for the country.
Things are being done.
Okay.
Whether it's sufficient or not, like the fact that the matter is a man will go prison 13 years ago could come back to society. We were there every day is not the one to judge. A man will go prison one day, talk it in an interview, say, boy, the place to develop still now. Like, only
so was that him or the private sector? Was that him or the private sector?
Eh?
Was that him who developed the place or the private sector? So infrastructure like roads, yes, that's government, Chinese, whatever.
Day,
yeah.
You never do blame with a point to the government. So if something that
that's true.
Them
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Similar to the same JFF, you know, where the blame lie, you know, you have to still give little praises.
No. And look. As I said, I have no stake in the game. You may have much more insight than I do. And you're basically saying, look, he has done a lot for the country. The question is, having taken that perspective, which I can't say I disagree with, because I don't know enough to say I disagree with it or agree with it. If it's found that he has illicit enrichment, would you be concerned then if he took some money on that table? Would you be concerned?
Yeah, obviously. No, I wouldn't want that.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't want that. But at the end of the day, too, it come like some money overwork and underpay. And really, as we say,
okay.
But everything with the man is like him, I say, oh, you know, so they not pay me, you know. So me have to go to start put some aside for myself. But for me, I say, cranky, when I check Portmore, anybody will live at Portmore can honestly sit here and say, yeah, place change. Me born at Portmore from before even Greater Portmore built. Before even Cedar Grove built and them play. Me live at Portmore long before them place. And now you have the Fountain and out at Tavern Village. I don't know if you know them places, but I'm sure enough I listen to them when know Portmore would understand what I talk about. So you have growth, man.
Okay.
You have growth. When I have a lie.
Well, that's one perspective, and I value perspective first comes.
When I hear people come out and I say, boy, now everybody has suffer. You have people who have a whole heap of wealth and a whole heap of money and a whole heap of things. So them people then I go say the country now run right more than crime.
Right. So wait, so here's a question for you then. How do you judge the effectiveness of a Prime Minister of Jamaica, for example? When you consider all the different things, so housing, social justice, which includes crime, the economy, how things are going, healthcare, all of that, pension for pensioners.
Poor. I tell you, one of my reasons, me have island, one of my main reasons for the overseas, right, through the
okay.
And people who know me can know, say, I really think me attack. And I just have to make a decision and say, yo, me I move because I see say it did go south.
Okay.
You understand?
Right.
But all right, me's a superstitious type of youth, you know, some reason. I feel like, see me, my history and the history of JLP, I feel like them just feel like them have a curse in them party. You know, like when them come in a power, things just always tend to feel facts over feelings still, you know. But the country always have a tendency to feel different, even if it work, as you say, quote unquote, economy or whatever. But there's just a feeling within the country.
Right.
We're just right. You get what I say? So my ideal government is like PMP, where even though sometimes things are go bad, there's a feel-good factor. Because I saw Jamaica build up still in a country. Jamaica build up off of feelings. We's a vibe type of nation, you know.
Right.
You understand? We prefer feel good than things might not perfectly right financially, but you're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you.
Them bag a curfew and the lockdown and the rain and all them operate. The brute force type of approach there, it's not a feel good factor for the nation. So but separate and apart from that, people make money and people live alright, same way.
Right. So you think he's good for the country then?
Andrew?
Yes.
No, I mean I think him good for the country, but as I say, a man cannot do good, you know, in a certain aspect.
Okay.
But he's still not the right fit, because we say the characteristics of a leader and a party have to also blend with the mass of the people.
Right.
And them just mesh with we. You understand?
Yeah.
The leader them just not mesh with the we and the lifestyle of Jamaican people. So it don't really matter what happen with the economy. It's like it just still not sufficient. It's still not. You understand?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I get it. Yep.
So
appreciate the call, sir.
But a lot of people me are talking and say really only for bank account and thing and what you get all of that.
No, look, I have a concern about the bank accounts in this context. I would understand, say he had 20 real estate properties and each of them is what they call an LLC, right? That's its own separate company. I could understand that, but and say you take away the 4 bank accounts with this joint account. There's a bunch of accounts, but you don't understand why you have all those accounts. It's a lot of accounts for an individual to have, especially the public official. Right? And some people say, why are you concerned about number of bank accounts? That doesn't matter. We do bank accounts for XYZ. No, because I can't decipher which is personal account, which is company account, because I don't think they made a distinction. They talked about bank accounts for Imperium and other companies. They looked at about 30-something bank accounts is what I see. But some may be Imperium exclusive. I don't know, but it wasn't clear to me.
But that's still cranky. I don't think he's going to win this.
You don't think he'll win in the courts? No?
So like this whole night, me I talk about from start to finish. Me think he's gonna end up like Bruce Golding.
Okay.
I think he'll be one of them situations because it's brewing. He might show a fuel in it, like when Bruce did say he now sign the extra paper. You know the brute force stuff.
Well, no, somebody brute force Bruce now. That's a different story. The man with the big long arm across the water brute force Bruce. The difference. Yeah. The Jamaica Public now that brute force. What they
and farm and the bomb, there would not have been this big uproar.
Right.
And you see, the labor right that happens. So I tell you, them curse.
Okay. Now I hear you.
So Banjo have to stop throw fuel in a fire and just resign. And if him resign, he can't go on with him.
I'm not resign. There's no way he's resigning. None.
What do you mean?
The man is president. The man is prime minister for life. What do you mean resign?
You still know, man.
Not resign. Not resign. He believes that this is politically motivated and they're doing it because elections may be next year or whatever it is.
Nah, man, him not survive this, man. I tell you.
Okay.
Not surviving.
I'm not sure I agree with you, but we'll see. That's why he's lawyering up. But here's the thing, people, about him lawyering up. Hey, Paris, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right, yeah, man, bless. Here's the thing about lawyering up people. The head of the commission is a renowned jurist, you know. He's a lawyer, he's a judge. Them a lawyer in the committee. So it's not like these people are not informed about the law, what it requires, and whether they can pass the test that one needs to pass, right? You can go to a court of law and stand up to scrutiny. I can just imagine being in that environment, each of them reading the report, making corrective actions to the report, whether it's verbiage, how you position a comment, how you position a paragraph, spelling, punctuate. The whole works over and over. Even though nowadays Word does a lot of that for you, but Word can't tell you how to put something on paper. I can just imagine how involved, because I've been through those situations, how involved that is. Not necessarily here with a country, but when you're auditing companies and big companies and you're doing what they call operational audit, you're going to run into a situation with very senior people, and it becomes very toxic and very difficult discussion. So I can imagine what they've gone through. Lovely says, Cranky, I'm not the Prime Minister, and I have 10 accounts, Cranky, and we'll be the next election also. But exactly, you're not the Prime Minister. And you probably have properties where you have the account with, right? There's a little bit difference. A Prime Minister shouldn't have no 24 account. You can know why? Should be thinking, he not have no time to do that. If he had his accounts in a trust and they're managed by somebody at 20-something accounts, a different story. The man has, 4 companies, 20-something accounts, not one of them account with him spouse. I thought that was interesting. I thought that tidbit was really eye-opening, actually. Not one with him spouse. And his spouse is in Parliament, which I find interesting. So no commingling assets for them. Sounds like a marriage, sounds like an arrangement. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. And Carlton, you probably have a number of businesses for when you have these accounts for. You have 10 accounts just by yourself. Just by yourself, 10 accounts. You probably have accounts in multiple countries. You're conflating two things, Lovelace. I think you're conflating two things. All right? It can't conflate two things, Lovelace. I think you good evening. Hello. Good evening.
Hey, Evelyn Cranky, Ted Dexter.
Ted Dexter, how you doing?
Good. I have to call up to follow up with Parish Council, right?
Yeah.
When he's saying that the Prime Minister is doing a good job. I'm saying if he didn't have what? How many company has? 4?
Yeah,
5,
he has 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that charitable organization make 4, and then some other company in the business with. Yeah.
So I'm saying if he didn't have so many other company, don't you think how much percent is he giving the country? Would the country much better than what he's doing if he's spending more time as a Prime Minister and not to worry about the rest of the company?
Well, apparently he multitask well. He must multitask well.
Right, but I'm saying he could have give some more.
Yeah, I mean it's possible, but the question is, he may say, I don't know what he would say because he's moving money back and forth between these companies. So I don't know what he would say.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because you're saying if you're split between 2 companies, there's certain things that Jamaica and I say, well, you're not giving us our 100% where we ask for the Prime Minister.
Right. I think what also the problem is, Ted Dexter, in terms of the whole review, is that there weren't clear evidence what some of these money movement relate to. So, for example, if you have multiple companies, you want to be clear as possible that a transaction you do, it's specific to that company, and you would put annotation in there and have receipts for all these money movements. They couldn't identify those things sometimes when they look at what the audit looked at. They wasn't clear. And they had to get explanation from him sometimes, which when they did further follow-up, didn't jive. So, yeah.
So did those companies have annual auditing?
Yeah, so 2 of the companies have annual audits. I don't know why, because they're private companies. Private companies, a lot of times, unless you have certain contractual stipulations, wouldn't do audits sometimes, unless you have like multiple shareholders or you have contract situation which says we want to make sure the profit and losses are divided appropriately, and we're going to contract that you need to do an audit. Normally, you probably wouldn't for private companies in a lot of instances. And given they don't have a lot of shareholders in these companies, and somebody's with his son, but they get audit financial statements, and that was part of the problem. What he declared and what they see in the financial statements sometimes differed, even though it was for the same period of time. Now, that could happen. It's not necessarily that it couldn't happen, but it was also part of the concern they have, which is I looked at what you give me, I look at what the financial says, they're different.
Yeah, that's the thing. And one of the things where, well, people are saying if he's going to jail, yes or no, or, what was illegal. My thing is this, I just said conflict of interest. If you're a Prime Minister, you said you had is what a developing company, I assume that make building and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying now it goes to who do you put first? If your Minister of Finance come and say, listen, we need to put some more tax on certain items, steel or whatever coming, and you say, damn, I'm making a big project over there. It's gonna increase my. What do you put? Do you say, hey, oh, let's go down that road and let's hold off and that where you can put more money in the car now, or it's me first. That's my concern. That you have to look. Everybody, as Mr. Lovelace is looking at, you say, hey, he's done nothing wrong. He's not going to. But you know, what's your interest? Is your interest the Jamaican people, or his interest is to enrich yourself?
Yeah.
I think that's what people should look at. You know.
Yes, I agree with that. Definitely, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because as you know, you have to look at those things and say, yeah, this, you know, we're paying you to do a job and you're not doing the job. As far as, you know, we're not know if you're putting our interest first or is your interest.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, and I think as with Parish Council saying this emotion, I think Jamaican, we put too much into emotion and look at things logically and say, okay, you know.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
As I said, emotion is like the weather. It changes. You know, today it's cold. Tomorrow, it's hot. You have to be, you know.
It's all about facts, that Dexter. It's all about facts. Facts and logic. Facts and logic. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what I like. That's why I like you, Frank. You always say, you know, whenever you start your YouTube, I'll be the first one because you know I like facts and logics, not too much emotion.
All right, sir. Hear you. Thanks a lot for the call.
All right,
appreciate
thank you.
Yeah, man.
All
Yeah,
right,
man. Have a good night. Thanks.
You too, bye.
Mr. Lovelace, you surprised me. You wouldn't even give any. So that's the thing why some people in Jamaica suffer, you know. We give no allowances that the people who we like and who lead can do anything wrong. Now, I'm not saying he did anything wrong. Let me be clear on that. But you give no allowance. Even when the facts hit you in the face, you're like, no, them set him up. This bad mind thing, people. All right, so yes, we bad mind. Let's say we bad mind, Carlton Lovelace. We bad mind, but the facts are staring in your face. Let's say we bad mind. So let's move forward then. We bad mind, yes. We're jealous. We don't want the prime minister if he have nothing. We want him to broke. But he might have enough money. And he makes $60,000 US a year, less than $70,000 a year throughout his entire career. Can we take the increase what Nigel gave? And by the way, I did ask the question way back when Mr. Maverick jump on. I did ask the question. How come Nigel leave just when the prime minister get called up? When him start get called out in the public, Nigel just disappear. Is it coincidental, or is it just, you know, Nigel being smart? Because the prime minister never take no raise, you know. Prime minister have money, not take no raise. He might get to the public good, he don't need the money. He might go from about 60 something to about 180, what the number is. Didn't take the money, because Nigel increased public servant money, at least parliamentarian money by enough, both opposition and the JLP personnel in Parliament. So it's really interesting how that works, actually. But I did ask that question as to when Nigel left, it's just very convenient. That doesn't mean that it's anything nefarious or anything that's bad. I just thought the timing was really interesting, actually. And by the way, Nigel has a brilliant resume. I'll say that, actually. Very smart person, brilliant resume, has a big role at the IMF. But his timing of leaving was just really, really coincidental or deliberate. All right, Nigel, wherever you go to, good luck, sir. Good luck. So people, what your thoughts are? I'm going to close this down pretty soon. I just wanted to come here and talk about this a little bit. Have a dialogue, not make any accusations, present the facts as they may. I think further investigation is warranted. I think the FID should look into it. The tax compliance is a no-brainer. The conflicts of interest, there are some things, the illicit enrichment is hard to discern and determine until you do further investigation. The conflicts are so pervasive, it's sickening, actually. Those levels of conflict are sickening. It was not, they focus on the member of parliament who is the urban development head and the Jamaica agency. But what about the secretary that's in parliament for three of his companies? How does that work? That shouldn't work. That's not okay. I keep talking about these conflicts in Jamaica, and they're not digestible. They're not good. It's not a good thing, people. They shouldn't be happening. When you have these conflicts, you're going to make bad decisions. If you're the prime minister, two things, Holness, before we go. You decide to be poor when you're the prime minister. When you decide to go into politics in 97, whenever it is you start running for constituent, you decide, not poor, you decide you weren't going to be rich. That's the first thing. Because Jamaica don't pay enough money for you to get rich, and they don't pay enough for you to invest. It's possible to invest if you buy some land and some house and they grow. And it happened with you, but you decide you weren't going to be rich. Because there's a difference between rich and have a decent amount of money. $1 million US is not rich. It's a decent amount of money, right? So you decide you weren't going to be rich. Secondly, you can't run the country and you have about 3 or 4 companies you run and other things you're involved in. And you're the sole shareholder for some, or you would just cut your son for others. It don't work. And money are moved left, right, and center. It don't work. And then you can't always be saying this. When Phillips accuse you, when the new people accuse you, because them see some things but it make no sense to them, doesn't stand for the stiffness test, you come and say them bad mind, and you're surprised at them, and you know who are grudging us or something, making all that you like these threatening comments. They're not warranted. If you believe you're innocent and you have nothing to hide, well, provide them with your expenses. Make sure it's done confidentially. Make the courts have them do what they call a special review, right? A review that's done under the auspices of some attorneys, right? Maybe identified by the courts. You know, there's a legal review doing, they call them privileged and confidential reviews. Let it be done under legal, privileged and confidential going forward, and the report's only published when it's done. Nobody can lead anything to the public when they can draw conclusions. But don't go be taking people to court say they things are unconstitutional when they're in law because they apply to you. You just undermine the country. If you think you're innocent, go through the process, let them do the investigation. You have nothing to hide, and let's see the chips fall where they may. If you have expenses, let's say you have, for lack of a better word, something fee, a subscription to Playboy magazine. They can rub that out. Make sure it's a number, a small number. Rub out Playboy and just show the number of, say, a $10 amount, whatever it is, if you're concerned about those things. But otherwise, let them look at the expenses. Let them, because you're a public official, you're no longer private. Say them have going to your private. No, you're not private. And they violate in Jamaica private. No. When you decide to become prime minister, you're no longer private. Everything is public. You look at these people in the US, for example, file tax return, except for Trump. Trump is not a regular person, people. He's in a different stratosphere, and all of us, including everybody else, like Biden, people file their tax returns, how much money they make. A lot of them, they make money from writing books or speeches, right? That's how they make their money. They ain't making money from a ton of investments on them stuff there. A lot of them make money before they went to Congress, and they may keep those portfolios on those investments. But with the prime minister, you're going to make decisions that affect the country, affect every nick and cranny, as them say, of the island and its activities, its economy, its healthcare, whatever it is, and you have companies, then you're going to benefit indirectly or directly, even if you don't intend to, and it's not going to look good. Yeah, Brian, I can send it to you. It have a little bit of spelling error in it. I just realized it tonight. So let me clean it up and send it to you. Text me information. Here's the phone number. When you have the number, and I'll get it to you. It doesn't have certain details in it. You'd have to go to the report because I summarized it from the report. But the report have a lot of details in it. And I did read the entire report, which is something let's say, see me come here and complain about not getting likes. I did sit down. It took me a while to read it. I should have read it like 1.5 times because to make sure I get all the facts. It's a good report. Is it a great report? I don't think it's great, but it's a good report. It's very detailed. It's well thought out. It's meant for all audiences, which is the most difficult report to write. If you're writing a report and it's meant to satisfy everyone, from the person who doesn't know A from B about audit or legal to the person who's an expert, that's hard to do. What they try to do, though, is make it as transparent as possible, as clear as possible, as detailed as possible. They want to show you that we did everything. Even if you don't know anything about audit or law or anything, we did everything in accordance with how you would normally think about these things. And we try to do it right. We ask questions. We did follow-up. We make you bring your lawyer. They did the process I expect them to do. And they did the process well. And Jamaica, as I said before, have good laws. The problem is you got to be able to adhere to those laws to make them really effective. All right? Yeah, no, Brian, the report is long. But it's easy to read, though. It's easy to read. You can skip a lot of these statements. Well, no, you shouldn't, actually, because they have dates on there. It showed the Prime Minister coming back in like 3 months to answer some question. Or any date they give him. Some of their dates was too aggressive. I'd say that. Some of the dates they give him to respond were a little bit aggressive. But as an auditor, when you have timeline you're working with and you ask for something in a certain time period, and the person said, yes, I'm going to get it back to you, and they don't, it just throws everything off. So when they said they did 2 or 3 investigations, to me, they should have just, I don't know what the laws are in Jamaica relating to this, but they should have done one investigation. Something didn't work. They just progress it, right? You sort of start and revisit versus do it all over again. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem. Who am I speaking to?
You know, my name is Legend.
Okay, Legend. What you have to say, Legend?
Many people, including you, when talking about the Prime Minister's situation, keep talking about legal and the legal aspect, right?
Right.
And but not you, but many people are talking about he did not do anything illegal or whatnot. Let's go back a little bit. When Mr. Holness was rising up through the ranks, one of the reasons why the Jamaican people took a liking to him was the moral stances that he took.
Right.
He was seen as different.
Okay.
He was seen as incorruptible.
Okay.
And even my dad, took a liking to him for that reason. I know that is true because I was there. And to see the change where everything that comes up every time there's a roadblock, he keeps on going for attorneys. He keeps on talking about law, and totally disregarding ethics. You understand?
Yep.
The post of Prime Minister is not analogous to a CEO where it is only even in corporate you have a thing called fiduciary duty.
Yep.
Where a CEO can be directly sued for violating the fiduciary duty.
Yeah.
And we have to ask the question, when the Prime Minister does something like refusing to hand over his expenses to the IC, that is a violation of ethics.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not illegal, but it's a violation of ethics, and especially with him, who he has been given a lot of support by the Jamaican people and moral and ethical grounds. He should that should be held against him.
Yeah, but I mean, ethics is one thing, and a lot of people sort of violate ethics. The question is, they're gonna go to: is it legal? Are you liable? Is it legal? Or does it rise to the extent where it warrants investigation or resignation? Right. So those questions are going to be asked. But I don't disagree with you about the ethical part. To me, it's unethical to try to avoid taxes when you're the Prime Minister or you have a role as a senior minister in the government. To me, it's unethical. It's not illegal, but it's unethical.
Yes, and also many people are being disingenuous regarding the issue of Mr. Holness' name being on his parents' bank account. You understand?
Right.
In Jamaica, you often put family name on your bank account, or for example, you put certain things in your family name, or vice versa. In terms of estate planning, right?
Yes.
But it is also a part of Jamaican culture to hide your assets in your family's name.
Right.
That's part of Jamaican culture too, and people are being disingenuous, pretending as if that's not part of a Jamaican culture. You have many Jamaicans who are in the white lady trade who will put the proceeds of that trade in their mother's account, in their father's account.
Yeah.
And so people are raising that, that's nothing that his name is here, that nothing. It can be nothing and it can be something.
Yep, that's the issue actually.
You know what I mean? And in my opinion, the guy broke all type of ethics there, and it should go.
Well, I think it's more than ethics, right? So if you think about the tax returns, if your company makes income and you're filing what they call nil, which means you're saying, I have made any income, well, it wasn't true. You made income in your companies that are registered with under the Company Act in Jamaica. So you made income, you should file a tax return. Now, is the income material? Who knows? It doesn't really matter. It's enough to warrant a tax return. That's why you get referral. If you have business with people who are in parliament, right? You're doing business with them, that's a conflict of interest, and they're in your ministerial portfolio, that's a problem. Those conflicts are not a good thing. Now, I see someone in the chat called Annette Allen losing her mind about this and being political. Annette, on my channel, Annette, here's how we operate. We respect each other. We don't curse each other. We try to be as professional as possible. If you can't adhere to those principles, then please leave. Right? Nobody's coming here cussing anybody on if you go on a dirty this. We're not into that. We're trying to run some kind of operation here, which we can agree to disagree. We can provide perspective. We may not always be right, but we try to be logical in our thinking. Your reaction and the way you're approaching it is not appropriate. So if you can leave, we'd really appreciate it. We wouldn't want your views. We wouldn't want your likes because you don't know how to act and operate. We should not be parochial in these things. We should look for truth. Now, we don't know what the truth is. I think the investigation need to be done. If there's nothing to hide, then the truth will set you free, as they say, and you get a chance to prove yourself. That's all it is. Everything that people bring up against certain people, it's like with Trump MAGA supporters. Trump can't do nothing wrong. The man has been a criminal his entire life. But because he support their initiative and what they want to accomplish, because they want to make America white again, that's what the objective is, then you can't say anything to them. No matter what he does, they're trying to railroad him. Nobody's complaining about Menendez in New Jersey being railroaded because he's going to go to jail and he's Democrat. Nobody's complaining about Adams, but they complain about Trump because you know why? He satisfies what they want. Go ahead.
Also, the narrative going around is that the Integrity Commission, submitted a unfinished report, and the report is in limbo. The Integrity Commission stated the reason why they cannot come to a conclusion because the Prime Minister is not cooperating. You understand?
Yeah.
They want to look at his expense to see if they match up with the income and whatnot, but he's not handing it over. So how can they make a determination when he's not cooperating?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem, right? now he's saying, look, people do this. It's not necessarily I think as a parliamentarian, you have a higher duty and a higher calling, and to be above the fray and to be transparent. I'm always saying this. You hear me say that about JFM football, and they push back about transparency. Transparency is an imperative. It allows the public to have confidence and trust in those who run its institutions. Otherwise, when you start lawyering up and you start fighting litigation because you don't want to be transparent, that becomes a problem.
In my opinion, the fact that you're lawyering up and you cannot come and say what's going on, to me, that's enough for you to go. You know what I mean? For example, I think you said you were born in the UK. You spent time in the UK. If this was in the UK, he would have been forced to resign by members of his own party the next day.
Yeah, the UK is a bad example. The UK is very draconian on these things, UK is very draconian. They don't play parochialism. If you're not doing the right thing, you gotta go. They find out you gotta go. Yeah.
But Cranky, that's how you develop a successful country.
Yep, true.
You have to be ruthless with your leaders.
Yes.
So you know what I mean. People. And also regarding these people, these partisan people. The last election in 2020, only 30% of the voting population turned out to vote. Recently, in the by-election in St. Anne, 11% turned up to vote. I'm slowly but surely the Jamaican people are becoming less partisan, and the people who are partisan, they shout the loudest, so that you get the impression as if they are the majority. But the vast majority of Jamaicans now are not into the PMP and JLP anymore. The voting turnout is telling us that.
Yeah, it's really sad actually. When you have 30% of your population decide how the country is run, That's not a good thing. People should vote, right? People believe that it's just like in the U.S. today. People believe that they're voting for lesser of two evils. But you should vote because then you shouldn't complain.
I agree, but it's evidence that people are not as partisan as before, and you know,
that's
these people, you know, they're shouting as if they are the majority, but they are not the majority, you know. And I want to thank you for you know, for taking my call, and good night.
All right, thanks for calling. Appreciate it, sir. No, must win. You know, watch my channel, must win. I am not trying to be diplomatic. Well, in some instances, yes. In life, you should be diplomatic, actually. Here's why I say diplomatic, because I've used this example. If you tell me something ugly versus enhancing my appearance, the ugly go get harder than the enhancing appearance, right? So we always got to be careful with that. But no, I'm not trying to protect myself. No, I don't do anything not to protect myself. Good evening. Good evening. You would have to turn your radio down, you know, or your other device down. It's coming in the background. You can't simultask. I'm hearing myself speak.
I don't have. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I'm hearing something in the background now. Somebody's listening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I'm hearing myself also. Why is that? Can you call back? Because something is not right.
Okay, no problem. I'll call back.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, it must be. It's not being diplomatic. Look, I think we all need to exercise diplomacy in life. Like, they need diplomacy in the Ukraine. They need diplomacy in the Middle East. They need diplomacy in life in general. Good evening.
Hi, is this better now?
Yeah, but I'm still hearing myself. You have something playing in the background. Everything I say, I hear myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. May I have to just live with it.
Okay, sure.
Okay, go ahead. May I have to just live with it.
Okay, so I'm just basically calling to give my point of view.
Okay.
I'm not a GLP, PNP. Okay, the feedback is pretty bad.
Yeah, and it's coming from your end, actually. So there's something in you must have it on someplace else. In your house or wherever you are.
Okay, well, it's unfortunate, but I'm also hearing the feedback, which is not a good thing, but I'll just continue listening then.
Okay, I appreciate the call, though. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, I appreciate the call, though. Sorry about that.
No worries, thanks.
All right. Yes, that's unfortunate, actually. I think she has another device. Normally, if you have your computer on, because sometimes when you're doing these things, she must have another window open someplace. She probably has two windows, one window open, and it's playing and she doesn't realize it. So it's either computer or on the device, but it's not a window open someplace where it's playing. So if you have it on and then you, like when I used to come on the StreamYard, if I was listening to it and then I come in the forum, you'll then hear it play in the background. So, but that's unfortunate. I would love to get her perspective and her view to what that entails. I'm getting stuff, and politics is always a very sensitive topic to people. People are very emotive about politics. I'm getting some texts here, very emotive. Brando, it's unfortunate actually. Maybe she can pause and come back actually. Not sure what it is, but I try to be as objective as possible. And I think objectivity is missing. Well, let me just say this. I'm objective about most things except Trump. I'm not objective about Trump. I apologize for that. Good evening.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, but if the feedback is still there. Do you have a window open on a device? You may need to pause. And you can pause that window or pause.
Okay, just one moment.
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So again, I'm calling from Canada, and I am a Jamaican, but I left there when I was 11 years old, so no strings attached when it comes to politics. However, I listen to what's going on, and I have similar sentiments to the caller that just called. And the first caller, my take is, where does a leader of a country has all this time on his hands to be doing business not relating to the country? Again, he did say that he didn't want that. He has pride. He's going to give back the 300% raise. So there's a lot of things that is certainly not moral, not ethical. From an individual perspective, a lot of person is saying, well, he is, a human being that needs to make a living. And again, as you said, not one of these accounts is joint with his spouse. That being said, is she also a part of this investigation? I think morally, as a leader, we just need to be more, we need to set a standard for the next generation. Again, apparently based on just listening to callers, the previous caller, when he came into politics as a young individual, everyone sort of, this is the reason why he's elected, because he's young, he's vibrant, he's saying all the right things. So he came in with a high expectation for the young generation. So unfortunately, this does not look good for the country. It does not look good for the younger generation who has aspired to now become leaders, right? There is no precedent set at all. And it's very unfortunate. Again, I am, I'm not a Jamaican. I have left Jamaica decades ago. I am just basically listening, and I've been back and forth to Jamaica, and I would say he's done an okay job. There is still a lot more to be done, and I just think right now where we're at, 2023, I just think that he should let justice take its course. The IC report is now moving on to the different departments to further investigate. Again, as you said clearly, if he feels that he's done nothing wrong, again, he should just basically, I wouldn't say he's not going to step aside, but just let the investigation takes place. As you said, where the findings are, when it does come to light, you just accept it and just do the right thing and step aside. Just do the right thing, step aside, and just let the country move on, giving whoever next take over for, the country in the future. Again, just you've put these people in place. Apparently, he's the one that put this IC in place. Again, he did not know that it's now going to come back to, bite him, right? So it's unfortunately now he's lawyering up and, having every bar set to lawyer up. I think he just needs to basically, at this point in time, just let justice play its course. He's put excellent, as you said, lawyers, accountants, all these individuals in place that is, as you said, have an extensive resume. So you put these people in place, let them do their job. They have done their job, and let the next department take its course, and where the findings are, you accept it. If they find nothing wrong, then the people will speak. The election is coming up soon. Let the people speak. Where the findings are, let it take its course.
Thanks for the call. Truly appreciate the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take
Thanks
care.
a lot. Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah. As the caller says, which I totally agree with, let the chips fall where they may. Let the chips fall where they may. Don't try to negate the process. Don't try to stop the process. All right. Let the process work itself out. If there's nothing to hide, then you don't have to worry about it. I agree with the call wholeheartedly. And these have been good call people with informed views about this. Now, someone asked me the question, Cranky, are you affiliated in the party? Not in Jamaica, I'm not. No, I don't. I've never voted in Jamaica elections. Because they don't allow people to live overseas to vote. I can't vote. But I'll say this, which is, I don't have any preference. My family in Jamaica I don't even know what my family disposition was. A lot of my family had migrated. The ones who were there, I don't know if they even vote, frankly, to be honest. We never had sides about JLP and PNP. Never had sides about JLP or PNP. So I was asked to call back. Let's see how that works.
Hello.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Who am I speaking to?
My name is Timol.
Timaro?
T-I-M-O-L. Timol. T-I-M-O-L.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Timol.
No, yeah.
What do you have to say, Timol?
Yeah, is that lady in Canada, she spoke about the Prime Minister of Jamaica?
Yes.
I don't know I think she is misinformed, totally.
Okay.
Because what has happened is 3 years, they had a audit on this gentleman.
It's 2 years. 2 years.
2 years and some months.
Yeah.
Because they start from 2021,
Well, no.
Going back.
His declaration was for 2021, so they started in 2022.
Yeah. Well, whatever. 2 years to me is
It's 2 years. It's 2 years.
Okay, all right.
Because they started in like March, like May, and then they had to go back in September. They had to stop it and start over again.
Well, just to set the record
2 years.
straight.
2 years. Yeah.
Just to set the record straight. This gentleman here, Peter Phillips, had brought up the same thing in 2015. And he responded. And he went back to 2007 and gave 3 times more information that they really needed.
Right.
And he passed every one of those. And they came back now with the same bullshit again. Really.
Okay.
And that's really
so you're saying the Prime Minister is in the right.
He's in the right because they spent 2 years, as you say, auditing him. And they brought a man to spend over $300,000 US dollars on him to audit. The man said there's nothing there. Mrs. Kamika said there's nothing there.
You're incorrect. You're incorrect.
What did the man say?
Which man are you talking about?
The forensic auditor.
So the difference between the forensic auditor looking at listen. We're looking at numbers versus the whole conflict of interest versus 400 million of ins and outs for his various companies. You can't draw a conclusion. The man said there's nothing there. You can't draw a conclusion if you don't have the expenses and the facts.
What is your facts you have to justify that the man is doing something irregular?
Nobody said he was doing anything irregular. Why are you being emotive about what is irregular or not? What facts do you have say he's not doing anything irregular?
Well, I'm going on the IC report. Because
you read the entire report.
I read it 3 times.
Right. So it doesn't have tax compliance issues.
No, none whatsoever. Zero.
Why?
No, there's none because they did not prove anything. They did not show anything where he was wrong. As a matter of fact, what they asked for the FID and the Jamaican tax department to go back over what they see because they couldn't find anything.
No. Here's what you're mistaken. Here's what you don't understand. You're not an auditor, right? You're not an auditor, correct?
I mean, not I have an MBA in management. I've been for 27 years.
You're not an auditor, right?
Go ahead.
No. Answer my question. I don't care where you work. Are you an auditor?
No.
Are you a lawyer?
No, neither.
Okay. So we can all be smart and intelligent and draw and review stuff, but if you don't have certain experts,
we cannot draw conclusions without facts.
You're not listening. You're being parochial in how you're thinking about this. Okay. I don't have a stake in the game. I don't care. I don't care what it's A or B. I'm telling you what I saw in the report.
What did you see?
There are tax compliance issues.
What kind of tax? Give me an example.
So, for example, Imperium, Positive Media, made income. Did they make income?
Positive, medium. All right, I'll tell you what happened.
No. Yes or no? We don't need to go around. They made no income.
They did not make any income. No, because Imperium is salary went to Imperium, and the company closed in Antigua.
By the way, you know the financial statements that they made income, right? They audited the financials that they made income, right? You know that.
Okay, all right, okay.
No. Stop. Wait. When we're debating, let's debate based on facts. You just said he made no income. The auditors he hired said they made income. You just said you say you read the report 3 times and he made no income, right?
Well, what I see, they say that he made 1.1 million.
No. That's not the income. No, you're conflating 2 things. The difference between what they figured the statutory declaration would be you're not listening. You're just saying, all right, but you're not listening. We have to listen to learn. You're not listening. You say you're an educated, involved person with IBM for 20-something years.
No,
when you're in the corporate environment, do you listen?
My circumstance is not a part of the issue here, right? Make a point.
No, but you utilize that to make a point. No.
Forget me.
But you use that to make a point, right? I'm going by what you're doing. So here's my point I'm trying to make to you. He made income. It's all the financial statements say he made income. That's why they refer to the tax authority, because they're not tax experts. Right. They know enough to say, you know what?
No. They have the MOU to go to FID and tax expert. They could have called anybody they want.
But
the last 2 years to come.
Yeah, but
they could have.
But why would they want to do that?
I'm not missing anything. When they were doing the audit, why would they leave the Jamaican people and the FID and go to a foreign entity to come and audit?
You know why? You know why? Because you have people like you. You have people like you. That's why. So, listen. Because people like you are parochial in your thinking, and they want to make sure they get. Listen, man. I'm gonna cut you off if you don't listen. I'm gonna cut you off if you don't listen.
You don't know nothing about me.
No, but I'm telling you how you're operating, how you sound. Here's the point.
I'm giving the facts.
No, you're not giving me any facts. You're just talking about you know what. You're not giving me any facts. Here's the fact. The reason why you go independent, that means the person has no stake in the game. So I can tell you, I don't. So therefore, because if he was from Jamaica, you guys would say he's trying to undermine the prime minister. So they made sure they.
All right. Okay. So why they go to him now then? So why did they go to the people in Jamaica now at the end of the game? If they didn't trust him in the beginning, why would they trust him in the end?
Trust who? What are you talking about?
You just told me they went to overseas because they don't trust the local.
They probably did for 2 reasons. One is they want certain.
No. You said,
wait. Listen. Don't tell me what. You know what? I'm gonna pause you because you're not listening. They did for 2 reasons. One is, in my view, they didn't say what I'm going to infer. They did it for one is because they want independence in the process, so we don't have any politics involved in it. And 2 is they probably don't have certain expertise, so they go buy the expertise. Everybody does that in audit. Right. If I don't have AI capability, I go buy AI capability to audit AI.
Okay, good. Can I say something now?
Yes.
That means the expertise that they got from abroad didn't find anything to really tarnish the prime minister then. So they close the book and them overseas now, and then pass the information now to the FID and the tax in Jamaica.
So you are saying things which are not in the report. They said no. They say in the report. The overseas experts say, you know what? There's so many transactions here. I have no idea what the hell is happening.
So why they pay $300,000 for what?
Because maybe they had to cut it off because you know what?
If you hear what the FID, if you read the statement from Mr. Panton, he said there was nothing untoward. They said towards the prime minister auditing. That's what the overseas people have said. They didn't have anything. And
they had nothing that they could just. But listen, man.
Right.
Why is this?
All right. Well, go ahead and talk. All right.
Jesus Lord. They said they didn't say they said nothing in the 2021 in terms of illicit enrichment. They said 2022 is questionable and that it was the immaterial. But what they're more concerned about is they see all these transactions and they can't figure out where the hell the money is coming from to go and come. So 400 million, over 400 million.
They had all the bank statements.
But you don't know where the money comes. You could put cash in the bank, can't you? You can put cash in a deposit, can't you?
Listen, man, you're ignorant, man. I've got to go leave you.
Okay, bye. Bye. I'm ignorant. And you're brilliant. You can bring up your resume and then you can't justify nothing. See, people, that's what I'm talking about. It's hard to argue with individuals who have a stake in the game, who have an opinion about what's supposed to be. They have no objectivity in how they operate. They are narrow-minded in their thinking. That's what killed Jamaica and people. Okay, me a labor, me not care about no labor than PNP. Me never voted in Jamaica. Me not go vote in Jamaica. First of all, they don't allow foreign citizens to vote. I don't care. I just read this. It was interesting, and I'm bringing the facts. I don't take either side. I don't care. If you come Prime Minister, Prime Minister, it not affect me one bit. I don't have a stake in the game. I'm telling you what the facts are. I've done all my life. I think I understand the report and what they're saying. And for you to come on this program, so they found nothing. When they find so conflict of interest is nothing. Him and him friend them have company together and in a parliament and nothing. Huh? Him and you charge of money for buy bond and nothing. Huh? Him have avoid tax, they didn't evade tax by putting company as St. Lucian. That's okay. That's not ethically reprehensible. That's nothing. He has 400 million going in and out of accounts over a 2-year period, which they can't really substantiate. They don't, I'm sure they expense. That's nothing. That's how you reason. What are we doing? How did we get here? Like, it's amazing to think how people reason and the logic. And you say you're an educated, informed person, but yet you can pull yourself away from the party that you support and try to be objective. That's why we would never get any place. I'm not saying the man is guilty. I'm pointing out the facts that I've seen. I'm pointing out what they have shown. They got audited financials. When they talk to the Prime Minister, what he's telling them doesn't align with audited financials. He gave them numbers that don't align. Are some of these numbers material? I don't think $100,000 US is material. If there's a difference, it wasn't 100,000. It was much less than that in case they pointed out. But that's the point. What they're saying is we want to make sure that we can sign off on these things. And we see so many movement money happening. We can't sign off. And they say, by the way, you have companies that you have that's not filing tax return. They should be filing tax return. What's wrong with that? Does it rise to the level of resignation? I don't know. I don't care. I don't care. But it's not supposed to. We're not supposed to be like this, right? We can agree to disagree. It sounds like I'm talking to a MAGA Republican, and I'm supposed to be a Democrat. Nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to have their point. Even when you have no stake in the game, you don't really care, and the person is losing their mind because of them checking 07. Okay, let's be critical. Where do you get money to buy that property in Beverly Hills way back when Phillips and others were questioning him, and where you get his money from? Where do you get the money from? You don't make enough money to have that money. We're talking about early 2007, 2008, whatever, that he filed properties with so much money. Where do you get the money from? He sold a property, I think in 2016. No, he bought a property, I think 2008. I think he sold it in 2016 for like half the price or whatever it is. And you're like, is that undercover transaction? Did you do it to save taxes, transfer taxes, or is it why you made it? Because we know that after the crisis, prices dropped, but not in 2016. Like, you see these transactions, you're just like, oh, this doesn't make sense. But I'm not going to get any aspersion. I'm saying the questions need to be asked and they need to be answered. What is so difficult about that? You have transactions which don't look good on the surface. They use prima facie case that, you know what? Just based on the surface of this not look good. So I don't know why we're here getting emotional about these things when we just going by what the report says. And the report have credence to it. The report have credence to it. No, I haven't blocked her, actually. And this person is just a rude person. I don't know why I'll block her after. When I finish, I'll block her. Annette, don't stay where you're not wanted, Annette. Leave. Don't stay where you're not wanted. You cussing and carrying on. I'll block you after I'm done with this. Don't stay where you're not wanted. We're trying to have a civil conversation here. You're part of the problem that Jamaica has. You're part of the problem where Jamaica has. I don't know why you're here. You just, you know what? Let me do this. Bye. Bye, Annette. Have a good evening. Enjoy your weekend. Your ability to reason has been compromised. So we won't be hearing from Annette anymore. Bye, Annette. Go to somebody else's channel and create havoc. None of mine. I'm gonna close this down, people. I'm gonna say this, which is, as I said before, no, they go to school, but it's the parochialism, the concept of I'm a liberator and you're a PNP. No matter how educated they are, they have no reason. They believe somebody's out trying to get them. and they're manipulated and used by the politicians. Now, I just did Rockford. Yeah, no, I'm not going to say Andrew Holness. I'm not going to put some of the comments, people. I'm not calling him crooked. I'm not calling him say he did anything wrong. I don't know. There are some things which are not disputable, not debatable, based on what the report says, right? And as I said before, I've been an auditor. I know what it is. I do it for a lot of my life. It's a difficult job to do. People are very careful when they issue a sensitive report. People, you have no idea the level of care that goes into this type of situation. It's amazing. And it's always, when they're very sensitive audit, they have significant personal implications, much less other implications. You're thinking about your own personal situation. When I was doing audit, I was too naive. I just said that the chips already made. I'm doing the job, and I get paid to do it. And sometimes I paid for it, not in a good way. And sometimes I got lauded for it and got compliments and got benefits, promotions. It's not always going to go the right way. Even when you do the right thing, it doesn't always go the right way, or the way it should go. Because people lack ethics, they lack integrity, they lack morality, they have lost their moral compass, and they do things about them first. That's why you hear me say the Prime Minister should not be managing these companies. There should be no trust. The Prime Minister should give up his expenses because he has nothing to hide. The Prime Minister shouldn't lawyer up if he thinks he's going to be exonerated and he's clear. The thing about the conflict is not disputable. The thing about tax compliance is not disputable. The thing about all these transactions between these companies is not disputable. Now, what do they mean to? You could have tax compliance issues, but it's not material. He has tax compliance issue. The question is, how much money is it? Do they even know? When the tax auditor is going, would they see more transaction? Would they see more money? Because a lot of money is moving. Or would it be just what the audited financial statements say? And therefore, it's not material, as they call it. It's not significant. Some of these things are not oversight. It's not oversight, people. Some of these things are deliberate. It's very obvious. When you get asked questions and you protest and say they're wrong and they're fighting you, and then the organization you said was the ones you deal with says, no, that's not how it goes. Here's the evidence, and then you don't have an answer. It's not a good look. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, Brian, I don't know. I'm not there. I've saw the evidence. I can only go by the evidence. But I don't know if he's guilty or not. Maybe the transactions you have between these companies are all legitimate. Who knows? Why are we so afraid of investigation? And why are we so afraid of audits if you have nothing to hide? Right? You're the Prime Minister, for Christ's sake. You should be an open book. Why are people in Jamaica in senior positions, why are they always concerned about this word transparency and all that? Why? So Colin said that's the problem. They have no reason because when they cannot have their way, they become aggressive. Yeah, I mean, he's getting all emotional about something that got nothing to do with him. I bet he ain't getting none from home. What do you care about Andrew Holness? Just care about Jamaica and how Jamaica is doing and do the right thing. You should be looking for the truth. You shouldn't be protecting anybody or siding with anybody. I just want the truth. All right? I saw the truth. And I'm not going to put up some comments, people. I don't want to make any comments which are accusatory. Right? I'm not into that. What I'm into is providing the evidence, providing information, and you draw your conclusion. Like I said, I'm going to close it down. Some things are not disputable. The compliance issue, if the facts are right in the report, are not disputable. The conflict of interest, which to me is the worst and most egregious, is not disputable. It goes about public trust and integrity. It's not disputable. The transaction between all those companies is not disputable. It's amazing when they bring up things to Andrew, how all of a sudden he's no longer the signatory. He gave it to his son. I didn't see one transaction between Andrew Holness and his wife. Any bank account, nothing joint. So I'm not the one at that about. But it's not me to call it out. Somebody just texts me something and says, this is funny, boy. So what was the comment again? I'm going to read this comment, people, then I'm going to close this down. A person says, Sangster, Norman Manley, and Ian Fleming international reports are now off limits to Cranky. That's funny. Good evening. You're the last scholar. Who am I speaking to?
Cranky.
Oh, Lord. My nemesis. Good evening. How are you doing?
Cranky. Cranky.
I'm not cranky tonight. I'm just giving the facts, ma'am.
I'm only calling for two reasons.
Yes.
One, I have a topic I'd like you to take on.
Can we do it another day? Because I'm tired. Okay. We'll do it next show.
Not
Do the show.
tonight.
No, yeah, Monday. We do it
Not
Monday. We do it
tonight.
Monday. Okay, Monday.
No,
Monday.
no, I'm just giving you the suggestion.
Okay.
Frankie,
Okay.
would you just listen?
All right, let me try to do that. Unlike my last
Stop
caller,
being
so-
the Jamaican now, please.
Okay, go ahead. I'll listen.
Yes, the topic. I know this one is going to be controversial too.
That
And
means
emotional.
that means I love it. Go ahead.
And emotional. It's the British reject, and the British reject Amari Hutchinson's decision, and this is all in one topic. And the reason why us, the in the diaspora, the United States and other countries are considered non-Jamaican.
By whom?
I
By who?
really, Cranky, I was told in my own face on management program that I'm not a real Jamaican.
Really? Who told you that?
Yes. I don't remember. I think it's some older gentleman, and his wife came on and said, "Stop that. That's rude."
So you want Amari Hutchinson, British reject, and then why Claudine is not Jamaican?
Not
'Cause
just,
Jamaican.
not just Claudine.
I'm Jamaican. I have my
heard that.
citizenship. I have my
Listen,
papers.
You're not a real Jamaican.
That's
But yes, Cranky, that's the topic I want,
okay.
because it's I was on JD's program when I came in from work, and let me tell you something. I got off there, went into my shower, and screamed, "I am tired." Why is it that my people have not grown? We have lost the ability to reason, to disagree. We can have we can agree to disagree. Why have we lost that? Where did we lose
you know what?
it?
That's not only Jamaican, that's in the US too. Between MAGA and Democrats, that seems to be pervasive. So maybe it's where the world is going, right? Maybe it's where the world is going. No, I'm telling you. Think about it.
I grew up watching my grandparents who were dilated, the ones that wear the orange color.
All right.
And another side of branch of the family and family friends. When there's an election, my grandparents would take a broom, go out there and be sweeping. And I, for the longest time, never understood what the hell they were doing until my mom says they do that because they're telling the other one they're sweeping them out of power.
Yeah, it's very contentious in Jamaica.
No, but it was fun.
No, but I'm just saying
When
that in
they
terms
were-
of political
yeah.
affiliation, right? Political affiliation is very, people they have clear demarcation, right? In your household, it probably was a good thing, but in a lot of households, it wasn't a good thing.
So Cranky, I mean, for serious God's sake. And I noticed that when we have a disagreement, like that gentleman that came on, he was quick to say how that woman was speaking, whatever.
Yeah.
He became, notice the trend, aggressive, loud, rude. And the last thing, he's throwing about, I have a whatever. Really, can you prove it? Because you're by your speech, you are not exhibiting that. Because I'm sure communication was on somewhere in that paper.
Yeah. Now it's disappointing. I mean, we seem to have more of this in the world actually, where
And he's an older gentleman. I
Yes.
expect that from a 19 or 16-year-old youth.
yeah, but sometimes older persons, which is what we're seeing in the US actually, they're so entrenched in what they believe and their ideology and their thought process.
I know
they're
I
not-
like
yeah.
to tell people that I'm an American, but to be honest, I expect that from them. I expect some level. I'm looking at my people. I hear some diatribe. Some guy went on JD's platform to inform him that Amari made his decision. Therefore, JD on his own platform cannot speak about Amari because he's not a reggae boy. The last time I heard, the guy got a Jamaican passport, right?
Yeah.
And he has Jamaican heritage. That makes him Jamaican. because he choose not to play for us doesn't un-Jamaican him.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't know why we're taking these things personal when the decisions
So
are made.
therefore, I mean, Cranky, we need to speak about it because this is becoming ridiculous.
Yeah, and I did hear another program today where the host was very dismissive of a lot. It was like the host is looking to fight everybody, and you know what? It's just very interesting. I don't know why we are doing that, but you're right about that. Actually, we need to. I have had a conversation before about people making personal decisions. That's for them and their families, and we just want them to make it so that we can feel good, and they can satisfy what we want, versus them making a decision that's best for them.
But Cranky, this is why I want us to speak on it, because these people have conveniently forgotten that when Amari Hutchinson came to Jamaica, and he was being booed.
Yes.
First, they put him on a cow patch, not a real in a cow pasture to play. That's one. Two, they booed the young guy. Flew how many thousands of miles?
Yeah.
They booed him. And then one reporter had the bloody nerve to look the guy in his face and ask him about Whisper.
Yeah. That was also
in his own interview. I was beyond embarrassed. And then we have the bloody nerve to say, how dare he choose England over us? Really?
Yeah, no, I know. I think I'm not sure people have all the intelligent information they should about these things, or they just believe that we're special.
And of course, there's information that I am privileged of. I'm privileged of this information that makes me, when I see it, it even makes me worse mad, because they don't know the reason why this guy has changed his mind.
Right. So, Claudine, let's talk about that Monday.
Goes
Claudine,
all the way there to do that.
Let's talk about that Monday. We don't want to just
yes, Cranky. So,
yeah, man. Monday.
Yes. So that's the topic I suggest.
Okay.
And you agree?
Yes,
good.
Yes. We'll do it Monday. Yeah.
Okay, Cranky. That's all I called to say.
All right. I appreciate the call, man. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. All right.
I will.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, people, I'm going to get to close this down. Let me just say this, a couple of things, people, which is, as I said before the outset, some people may not believe me. I have, this is going to sound really bad, me saying this, but when it comes to Jamaica Prime Minister, I'm English. That means, even though I'm Jamaican, I have Jamaican citizenship, I'm English. I'm going to go to my English heritage a little bit. But I have nothing to do with this. Anyway, we're not English anyway, because we're going to go England to go get Privy Council for the to have somebody. It's a different story, but so we're still English. Jamaica is not independent, people. Jamaica is mentally not independent. Are literally not independent in terms of how we operate. So not being facetious, but being serious. I have no stake in the game. I am not PMP. I'm never JFP, never PMP, never JFP, never will be either. I'm not voting in Jamaica election because we can't vote remotely. And if we could, I would assess what each does and then probably make a decision about which one to vote for. But that's not possible today, and that's going to happen, right? Secondly, I understand the report that they issued. I've done this type of review all my life. I get it. That's why I walked through the process, the methodology they employ to execute their audit. It makes a lot of sense. They know what they were doing. The laws that I read and that addresses these topics are good laws, and that's laws that countries should have. It's not Jamaica only develop laws. They leverage other countries to develop these laws, right? So that's a good thing. So Jamaica have good laws on the books. The question is, how do we execute against those laws? Do we hold people accountable? Do politicians act with integrity? Are they in a situation where even if things don't look right in their finances, they'll make it transparent and be able to explain and realize that they weren't doing anything nefarious. It's just that something may not line up as one would expect. It's not cookie cutter, right? And maybe it can be explained. Maybe you didn't know that you're supposed to file those tax returns, which is hard to believe. But it's not okay to me, ethically, to have ADMAT, whatever the company is, in St. Lucia in 2008, to what appears avoid taxes. There's no reason why a Jamaican politician executing his duty should be having a company that capture all his assets in a tax haven. That's not ethical. To me, that's morally reprehensible, to be honest. Because you will tell other people in your country to pay tax, but you don't want to pay the tax you want them to pay. It's not okay. there's questions about his asset, and I don't know about his house in Beverly Hills. I wasn't following the story that much, but when I read about it, doesn't look right. But he made statutory declaration all these years, and they passed them. Who passed those declarations for all those years? Why is it not only this year? Because some of the numbers I see, to be frank, weren't that material. The number in 2022 to me was not material numbers, like $12,000, what the number is. But so some of the numbers that they brought up as things that should be looked into, they're material. But the problem I ask them is how you even get to a number where you don't know who owns what. How you figure out what his percentage ownership in Positive Media is, in Estatebridge is. He's doing the transaction with Greenemerald, whatever the company is. He has no affiliation with them, and money's moving back and forth. They beg questions. They beg questions which need to be answered. So, Prime Minister, I don't understand why you get into your feelings about these things. You get many lawyering up when sometimes they ask a question and you provide answers which were deemed false. Some people could say that you were lying. I don't know if you were lying, but they didn't line up with what. And then when you protest and push back really hard, and you go in Parliament saying certain things, but when you read the report and balance out the equation, you're like, no, they have evidence. They get evidence from financial institutions. You're protesting against some things which they have evidence saying you didn't do or you did do. And you're saying, no, they're wrong. And they sending you, like I'm sending you tapes to say X, Y, Z, and you're telling me no. And I'm saying, no, you're wrong. Here's what you did. So you're not always right. And we can have memory lapses conveniently sometimes, whatever it is. But my suggestion, Prime Minister, is be transparent. Let them review the information. Hopefully pass the test and you can get on with business, run the country. But my view is this. You can't run the country and have these companies. You can't run the country and have these conflicts. You can't run the country and don't file your tax returns. Those things are not disputable. All right, people? So listen, people, I appreciate you being here. It's my first time doing this on this channel. I may do more, actually. I don't know yet. It's a sports channel, but my other channel is now on pause. So that's why I'm doing it here. It may also flash over there. And we'll be back on Monday to talk sports. We're going to talk real sports. We're not going to talk Jamaica. Because if you don't talk Jamaica football, how fun will not turn up? So maybe we'll get some new audience. I'm going to talk sports. All right? I'm saying it could be money laundering. Much. I'm not making any accusation. What I'm saying is the FID should investigate and go find out those source of deposits and those source of withdrawals. And who the withdrawals go to and who the deposit make and why we have so much money going between different companies when they have supposedly no relationship. Now, it could be that because all his assets are in Imperium, and if he's made money in one company, want to take it over, that's possible. But he's making money back and forth. So I don't know. Maybe he shouldn't have. I don't know why you have a company. He has a company for everything. Maybe he wants to claim all his expenses or business expenses and write them off. People do certain things for tax. People. One of the most important things that somebody does when they have money, I don't have any, so I wouldn't know, but I'm just telling you what I've heard, is to manage their taxes. It's to manage their taxes, people. I'm telling you. People need to realize that. Most people with money, the most imperative thing they can do, the most important thing they can do is manage their taxes. In the US, for example, if you're in California, you make about $400K a year, you could end up paying, after that number, say, more than 50% of your income in taxes. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that. So people are going to find them. It's not illegal to avoid taxes. It's illegal to evade taxes. That's my last comment. So I'm not saying the Prime Minister did anything illegal when he put his assets in the St. Lucian company and only moved them after the EU forced St. Lucia to change their laws or twist their arm. What I'm saying is that it's not ethical. It's just not. All right? So anyway, GMG, Caribbean, Claudine, before the game or after the game, Brian, everybody who joined, Ted Dexter, the caller who came and gave me a hard time. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to do more of these programs. Maybe once a week I may do one. Talk about different topics. It will not be the Prime Minister again. I think I had enough. I thought the Prime Minister, people are too emotional about that. Very emotional about the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And I knew it was going to be emotional. People take sides and they're adamant and they want to accuse us saying him a crook. And I call nobody crook. Until you have evidence to call people crook. Sometimes people make decisions, it's not the best decision, but it's not me say they're crookish now. It just seemed that way. All right? So I'm not going to call anybody crook because it's not the right thing to do until you have evidence. Until you go to a court of law or the FID come and say, no, the man do certain things which are illegal, don't call nobody crook, people. Don't call nobody crook unless you have evidence. All right? Be fair. Be objective. Try your best. Even if you're labor right to the skin, or you're PMP, you're red to the skin. I think I read. All right? just be objective. Is my party doing the right thing? Is my prime minister doing the right thing? Do I have evidence? Should I have concern? Because then you're just a follower. You're just a follower, you know, query things, right? Anyway, I'm gonna sign up here by saying I appreciate you. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Thanks for staying with me for almost 2 hours and 40 minutes. I hope you have a good weekend. If you follow sports, I'm back on Monday talking some reggae boys, because you know they have squad. You can't talk about the same thing 101 times. Even we get bored sometimes if you talk about it. That's how we get views. And we like views. If you haven't hit the like button before you leave, please do so. And if you have other topics that you want me to talk about, which are not sports related, but you think will be interesting, text it to the number. The number on the screen. Text it to it, and I'll think about it. I want to talk about anything: social justice, politics, Gaza, Ukraine, far right in Europe, climate change. If I don't have the information, I'll go get it and educate myself and come talk about it. All right? And maybe we can expert who can talk about it. Bless up, everyone. Big up. Hey, Kyle, I forgot you dear. Kyle, I hope the Jamaica thing working out well. Good night, everybody. Peace out. I won't even play no music to go out because this is not a normal cranky life. I'm just going to click off. So peace out, people. I appreciate you. Thank you. Good night.